Hello, everyone. Welcome to the inaugural podcast from the Pro Crastinators. I'm here with my internet friends. Everyone, introduce yourselves.
I'm Digibro, and I
I'm
smoke
not on
a
my
lot of
A
weed
game.
and promote black stereotypes.
Yep. Who else?
I'm Hypocrite. I'm an African animal from the Africa, and I review video games.
I'm
Yes.
Ben Saint. I do a comic called The Vapors. Go read it.
Nice. And I guess I'll be Guy from Best Guy Ever. Go watch my YouTube anime videos. They're the
Sounds
coolest
so
thing.
unsure of yourself.
Well, it's one of those things. I don't know. Anyway, so this is a new thing we're going to do. We're doing podcast on some general sort of theme that hasn't been decided yet. But today, we've got a topic. And our topic today is what constitutes a best game ever. There was recently a poll on GameFAQs, as there is like every 5 years or something, for the best game of all time. And so the first one to win in like 2005 or something was Final Fantasy VII, and then the next one was Ocarina of Time, which are some of the two most beloved games ever. And this year, to the surprise of all, Undertale, that new meme game, Undertale, has taken the crown after being out for like 3 months or so.
Yeah.
And so, we're just, it's quite an interesting situation. Possibly was just rigged, but nonetheless raises some interesting questions.
Well, depends what you mean by rigged.
That's true. There's lots of ways to rig or not rig.
It won because of like rallying from Tumblr and other places.
Well, I mean,
And it
theoretically,
really is- it really
someone
is
could have
just
made a bot, but probably not.
I mean, it
I
isn't.
guess.
There's a conspiracy going on.
I guess.
Here's-
not.
speaking
Yeah.
as the only person in this group who actually votes in every Game FAQs poll and has done so
sure.
for fucking 8 years, I know that 2 days ago there was a poll called "Did the Best Game Ever contest convince you to try Undertale?"
Oh, cool.
The answers went. The first answer was it might have, but I already owned it before the contest started, which had 21% of the votes. Yes, I picked it up after it was featured in the contest battles, had 3% of the votes, 3.8.
Okay.
Somewhat, I might have to at least try out the demo now, was 20.32%. Not really, it's not my style of game, not something I'd ever get, was 29.61%. And no, and I refuse to ever buy it purely out of spite, got 24.71%.
So you're telling me that less than 50% of those people said they had played it or wanted to play it at all?
Yes.
That's okay.
Of the
That's
regular
extremely
poll
interesting.
answering,
You know what?
People who voted for it just.
It's the kind of game that lots of people wouldn't play anyway. So I don't think it's going to make any difference.
I mean, okay,
for old
there's-
Toby Fox.
I know the whole popular opinion thing is just interesting, but really it's not the focus of what we're going to talk about here. So, to make a comparison between, like, the other two, like, the games that had previously won the polls, Final Fantasy VII and Ocarina of Time, are both, like, complete game changers at the time they were released, which was around the same time anyway.
I mean,
Like, Ocarina of-
Undertale could be real influential, but, time, we have to wait and see.
That's the thing. Final Fantasy VII and Ocarina of Time were both, like, technical marvels. Absolutely blew away anything else that had come out at the time in their own ways. Undertale is like, not at all that way technically, but you could certainly make a case that it is that way in terms of, like, narrative and storytelling and, like, game immersion, that sort of stuff.
Like
That's all really vague shit you just cited.
I know it is. It's totally vague and subjective, but that's,
the thing about Undertale is that Undertale does a lot of things that are all very interesting, but I think it only actually does like one thing that's totally new, which is
does it do any? I'm not sure it does anything
let's hear
that's
what
totally
Let's hear what he
new.
has to say.
I think the only thing it does that's very new is offering the meta commentary on save scumming. That I don't think there's ever been a game that has that weaves your save scumming into the narrative in a way that you are changing the story by resetting your save. Spoiler alert for anyone who didn't know that about Undertale, but For
That
fuck's
might be
sake,
true.
it's already won a best game ever poll, and it's a 6-hour game. Fucking
Yeah,
play it
yeah.
if you're interested at all.
Now, that's a very interesting point, and it certainly has a unique twist on it. However, there have been games that incorporate the death mechanic into the gameplay, which is a very interesting way to go.
Yeah, but just incorporating death is like step one.
Yeah.
Incorporating
Yeah,
the
that's
act
true.
of save
That's true.
scumming is like a next level.
I definitely
beyond
don't
that.
like even if we talked about like a game like Dark Souls where they have written like death into the story that you know if you give up playing, then it means you hollowed. If you keep going, it means that you're continuing to be reincarnated. But Dark Souls handles this by saving constantly.
Yeah,
There is
yeah.
no save scumming in Dark Souls. It's always saving for you. Whereas I don't think I've ever heard of an RPG where you can, restart and you can redo things, but the game is keeping track of it,
Yeah.
I think there might be other games that do keep track of that kind of thing, but not for like the reasons that Undertale
not for
does it.
not narrative reasons.
I don't
for
think
sure.
it's hugely important whether or not it was the first game to do it or not.
I think it's important.
Well, I would make the argument that it's much more about the sum of its parts and how it works all that stuff together.
No, if it
I
did something before anyone else did it, that's important.
Look, it deserves credit, but that's like long term. I don't really think that's. I know it's important. I don't know. I just think that Undertale is much more than just.
Yeah, I know. Okay,
any
well,
one
you're
of those
moving the
mechanics.
goalposts. I'm not saying it's whatever.
Look, this is not an adversarial thing, Ben. It's a. We're all
Isn't it?
friends here. We're all friends.
Are
I'm
we?
telling you.
Fine.
Okay, but I kind of don't want to go into too much specifics here because I'm currently making a video called "Best Game Ever Undertale." So go watch it when it's up.
This was
be
your
up shortly after
podcast
this.
idea.
This I know.
And you don't have to
just-
release this before Best Game Ever Undertale if you
Hey,
don't want
you know
to.
that's true. Maybe I'll save it till afterward. You know what? Okay, I'm gonna go with that. All right, I'm going full out with this. So what the whole save scumming thing is, and the way that the characters respond to it is definitely the most special thing about the game, and the way that it commentates.
Is it
Well, I think
totally
in the
subjective?
sense. Well, all right, okay. I'm gonna warning. These are just my opinions. They are not fact.
No, they're not.
I cannot validate them objectively.
They're
right.
true.
Why, Ben? Do you think there's something else that's
Well, just because you
more
said
important?
definitely. Yeah, I
Well,
don't.
definitely to me.
Yeah, just
I
because it
strongly feel that way.
innovates in that way doesn't mean it's the thing that recommends the game.
Well,
I mean,
I'm
I wouldn't
recommending it for that reason,
recommend.
goddammit.
I wouldn't recommend that game to someone on the basis that it's meta about its save states. I would
Well-
recommend it on the basis that it's a good story and it's really hype and it innovates in a number of ways. That being one of them.
Well, I just wouldn't use those terms. I'd say it's really good because that's what I like about it. So when I recommend to someone, that's what I'm
discussing why
recommending.
it's good, I would definitely come up.
Well, yeah, but I wouldn't
As
really want
one-
to describe that to someone before they play it. Okay, you know what? We're getting off topic here. The focus here is to discuss what it means to be a best game of all time, and what was the motivations people had for voting for it. So let's just talk about that now. So, I mean, just comparing the winners of this poll, there's the technical innovations, and then there's the classics, and then there's this one game that's been out for a couple months that has completely taken over. Was it reasonable to vote Undertale as a best game ever? I mean, obviously it was a popularity poll. I'm just saying
it
for
is
posterity.
some people's favorite game of all time.
Okay, that's true. But will we look back on it in, it's been like 20 years
Well,
since Final Fantasy
see-
VII and Ocarina of Time came out.
And that's the conversation that I've been having with the Devu, and I think you have as well.
Yeah,
We probably should have just brought him in this, but
that's
sorry, Devu.
He can be on some other time.
It is the best game ever right now. And
That's
it might
an
not
interesting-
be 6 months from now.
Well, right
but,
now
like-
is when we're voting.
Right,
No,
exactly.
that's true. That's true.
That's the issue. That, like, this poll... Because this poll only happens once every 5 years. And I guarantee you that if Undertale had come out 1 year ago, it would not have won this poll.
yeah.
No.
It came.
Yeah.
This poll happened at a time when this game was at maximum hype. When the highest number of people possible care about it, because it's had 3 months to build up. Where like the initial fan base exploded, more and more people care, more and more people are creating things, and a lot of that, all the ideas that have been had by the Undertale fandom, have sort of been realized by now, or they will be within the next few months. And 6 months from now, it will not be hype like this. There will probably be something else that a lot of the people who were super into Undertale have gravitated towards. You know, maybe a new season of Steven Universe or something, or the next bomb from that. You know, and people will be talking about something else. And the specific circumstance of a best game ever poll happening and then someone campaigning really hard to make that game win would not have happened. And, you know, when you look at the voting, like the way it was going, because I turned you guys onto the fact that it was in the running early on.
That's true.
And it had narrowly beaten Mass Effect 3 at the beginning. And I remember that my impression was like, Undertale won, but I had marked it as winning just because no one likes Mass Effect 3. It's a game that's that's widely disliked by even fans of the franchise. So Undertale winning against Mass Effect 3 was kind of reasonable, but every single round its margin got bigger, you know, and it was beating games that are more and more considered classics that more and more people love by wider and wider margins. Suddenly it's beating Fallout 3, which is a game everyone loves, and suddenly it's crushing Ocarina of Time in the last round. Like, the numbers were crazy by then, you know, and it just, the fact that it so barely even beat Mass Effect 3 says to me that, like, the game FAQs for, like, people who would have voted for this would not have voted for Undertale.
There's
and,
no question there was a surge of outside influence to the normal voting, you know,
and I think that, but I think it speaks to the influence of Undertale's popularity right now that no other game got, because obviously there was tons of people who were mad about it. There was like a huge counter move against Undertale, but it didn't work against Undertale.
Hey, love trumps hate. Hillary, 2016.
Like no one made it like no one was building up a counter force of people voting for Ocarina of Time, you know?
Right, certainly not in the numbers or the influence.
Right. So because if Ocarina of Time was relevant enough right now that it could have beat Undertale, then it would have beat Undertale, because there would have been enough people going, no, Ocarina of Time is still the greatest game ever, and counter-fighting it, you know?
Well, I mean, you gotta ask yourself you gotta look at who's voting in the poll and what percentage of them are making, like, a legitimate vote based on favorite game, and who's just coming in specifically, someone told me to vote for Undertale to mess this thing up. It doesn't necessarily say anything about. I mean, I kind of agree that if there is, Ocarina could have been, if popular enough, that might have happened, and the fact that it didn't does say that, you know, Ocarina maybe isn't that relevant or whatever compared to Undertale.
You know, there was that post one of you guys linked of the guy who said that, like, he said something to the effect of that he voted for Undertale just because he didn't want the same old games to be winning again and again.
Yeah, right.
But
and Jesse feels that way too.
And all I could think was, you know, noble goal. Why didn't you vote for Dark Souls, the actual best game ever? You know?
Yeah, I think that Dark Souls, and this gets to the heart of kind of what I want to talk about. You know, what exactly makes a best game ever? And I really think that something like Dark Souls, I absolutely love Undertale. I'm crazy about it right now. Though the fan base I find a bit obnoxious these days. But Dark Souls has not only completely changed the game of making games. It's had a huge influence, and nobody expected it. And there's like a post and pre Dark Souls world, and it's one of those milestone games, maybe like Final Fantasy VII, like Ocarina of Time.
Maybe we'll be saying the same thing about Undertale in a year.
Oh, right. That's true. We might. And you know, this is only my opinion, but we don't know. It seems to me too early to say. I don't think I could honestly make a case that I think it's the best game ever.
I can't help the feeling, for me personally, that like if Undertale is bringing in a new revolutionary idea, then it's not the game that's gonna have done it the best. You know, like I think if there's a game that takes the ideas of Undertale and then does it in like the full package, where it's not like an 8-bit indie game and it's not like 6 hours long, and you know, and really like
I don't know that I agree with you.
Hang on, here's where I'm going to completely 100% disagree, because in no way do I think a game has to be anything more than the presentation Undertale has. I think a game could look exactly like Dwarf Fortress and be the best game of all time if it was built in such a way.
I just don't agree with the whole idea of a best game. Like, I either want to play it or I don't. That's how I see it. Like, it's good because I remember the fun times I had playing it, and or I want to play it again right now. Having like a best is just sort of pointless.
It's entirely masturbatory. That's true.
It's also as pointless as having scores. They're kind of a little bit more helpful, but it all still boils down to, do I want to play it, yes or no?
Yeah, like look at the poll. At game like Final Fantasy VII won, then Ocarina won. Like they'd both been out the whole time. Only thing that changed was people's opinions, and that's just how it's going to be forever.
Well, for me, I love having a best, and I like having a most favorite thing, because
it's a very fun.
I can look at it and I can say, like, this explains my taste. You know, like, this explains what I want. This is what I want games to be. Like, for me, I consider Dark Souls to be the best game ever, because like, it represents everything I value in video games. It has, you know, it's a game that at the same time has a deep and involving narrative, but one that you can engage with on your own terms. It incorporates the way that you play the game into the narrative and style of the game, where, you know, if you die, that's part of the narrative. If you give up playing, that's part of the narrative, you know. There's nothing that you can do in the game that would break your immersion with the game, other than like glitches and stuff, you know, which
but you know, a lot of
super
people...
important. I think that's what really makes Dark Souls a greatest game contender.
Right.
Like that's what I really value.
You know, I just want to throw out there, that's fine, but I'm 13 and my favorite game is Call of Duty Black Ops 2, because it's the game I play every single day for 6 hours after school. Right. And I get more enjoyment out of that than anything else in the world.
I mean, and yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I think if we're saying best game ever as anything other than personal opinion, then that just means it's consensus, right?
And that's pretty much the answer to our whole that we just answered the question of this whole discussion here. It's consensus. There is no objective.
Podcast over.
Go on, Digi.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think the reason Undertale wins in this contest is that right now there's enough people who care about it, but that's the
and those
funny
people
thing.
Are able to galvanize votes, because I bet a lot of those people, you know.
But that's the funny thing about it, though, is that like 6 months later, if you ran this poll again, it won't be Undertale, and you have to wonder, like, I think what that does is it puts into perspective how how subject to change the idea of the best is. Yeah. Because like I think on Game FAQs, as someone who's been on there for a long time, like the Legend of Zelda franchise and anything by Square Enix are extremely overpowered for these contests.
Yeah, right.
They are franchises which people have set in their mind long ago that they are the best thing ever, and they will continue to vote that they are the best thing ever. You know, like the fact that fucking The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past beat Dark Souls in this poll. You know, this game that is what, God, nearly 30 years old.
30 years ago, yeah.
No, it can't be 30
No,
years.
like
20 years.
Yeah,
around
25,
20 something years old. And it's a game that literally every Zelda since has iterated on and improved on. You know, every 2D Zelda has tweaked the controls to be a little better, has tweaked the way the world building is a little better. Every 3D Zelda game has used the same formula, has used the same, you know, structure.
Well, you could say it's attachment to the original, the originator of the formula.
You could, but like I just think that game it makes it that far mostly because people think it's A Link to the Past. It's the classic. It's the original. It's you know, automatically great, but not because they would actually play it today and it would be their favorite game. You know.
Sure. Yeah.
I think people voted up because it's the OG and not because they legitimately think that it's a better game than Dark Souls. You know.
Well,
now
that reminds me. I want to go back to your point that in the future, games may iterate on Undertale's ideas and do them better, because I don't think that's necessarily the case. Because because like Guy was saying before, the things that Undertale did better than anything else were not technical things; they were creative things. And anything technical that was going on there was done in service of its particular narrative. And so I'm not sure that's the kind of thing that can actually be improved upon in like any measurable way.
And only in an artistic way, which is entirely subjective,
I could see that. I guess for me, because out of anyone in this call, I am the least impressed with what Undertale is. Because for me, like, my biggest problems with this game were like I appreciate like the graphics and everything, but to me they felt like a limitation. It didn't feel like this was the ideal presentation.
No, absolutely not.
A limitation.
Look, the great things about Undertale were like the resetting and the keeping in memory the things you've done, and the way that it closes itself when you like lose to Flowey later on, and the way the game, you know, permanently fucks up everything if you do the genocide route and then try to do it again. None of those are particularly impressive feats of programming or game development, but to apply the ideas in those kinds of meaningful ways shows just the creativity of Toby and all that good stuff.
Some of the art in the game is bad, and that's because it was done by Toby before he got kickstarted and had the money to pay artists. That I think is a limitation. But like the fact that it's 2D pixel graphics and, you know, like white enemies in a black field, I don't think those are limitations. I think even with all the money in the world, it would have still had that aesthetic.
I have no problem with 2D pixel art, but if you went and played like a old, like, let's say Super Nintendo game like Super Metroid, or even well, I guess Mario RPG wouldn't really be 2D pixel art per se, but like
it counts.
They're really nice looking games that hold up really well. The game that always comes to mind for me is like Valkyrie Profile for the PS1. That game has like these luscious environments, gorgeous pixel art. Or if you were going modern, Muramasa or like Skullgirls or something. Like, do you think that Undertale would not be better if it had the art budget to be a beautiful 2D game?
That's fair, and you can improve the art of anything.
I don't really think it would be any better.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. What I really care about is the ideas, and if you've got a sprite that conveys the idea that this is Heat's Flamesman, do not forget his name.
What if you had the exact same game, all the ideas are the same, but the graphics are better?
I'll give it to you. I guess that'd be better.
Would you say, Hippo?
I don't like good graphics.
Yeah, I agree.
There you go.
I mean, the best looking place in the game is the core. The core has all these really fancy cloud effects and lighting effects, and everything looks really nice and crisp and shiny. And I don't like it any more than the Ruins, which is like 2D piece of crap drawn by Toby, who isn't an artist.
I thought the Ruins looked like shit, and I didn't feel invested in the game yet because it looked like shit.
They do look like shit, but in a way that I'm totally fine with.
Okay, the thing that bothered me the most in Undertale design-wise is that the whole game to me felt like a very long horizontal hallway. because you always see, especially in the ruins, you continually see like a black border, like you are walking through like a tunnel that exists in a void. And like in my mind, I'm picturing like designing this map on the backdrop of nothingness, because you're drawing like a tunnel through. Like you're just drawing a tunnel and putting a game in.
Okay, now you could be right about that.
And let me add to that probably the worst thing for that, and it's so bad that even I was slightly bothered by it, is that in the very final area, in the walk up to the last boss, you're walking along this like gray platform, and around you is just blackness with like a couple of like really shitty looking like stone buildings copy pasted in a perfect like grid on either side of you. And I think what it's supposed to be suggesting is that you're walking through and or over a city, but it really just looks like these rectangular things like stuck on a black background. It really is terrible.
And I think if this game didn't feel, because when like the moments that it really sinks in are when you backtrack, or you go back and forth, and you really feel this sense of like this is just a left to right motion. You never really go far up and down. You never really go, much in opposite direction. And I mean, that could be on some level symbolic that this whole game is one long trip to the right, But like, I just felt like if this world felt more integrated and less like a hallway and more like a, maybe like a Zelda type thing, which even Zelda, feels like a fucking square. So like once you really explore the map.
I'm glad we're talking about this, because none of this had the slightest bit of detrimental effect to me in my experience.
I don't think for what Undertale is does not need to be an open world. Like the story Undertale is trying to tell is successfully told via a hallway.
I don't think it needs to be open world, but I think that I think that by having if that black space off to the side was drawn in, and like you could tell that there's a world right outside this hallway you're in, then that would sell me on it more. I've always been a big fan.
There are places where the art could have sold things a little better.
Here's a video game. Here's an RPG conceit that always that bothers me. Right, that the Final Fantasy games do this much better than any other JRPGs, in my opinion. I hate it when I show up in a town in an RPG and there's 5 houses.
Yeah,
and like
sure.
Those 5 houses are the only relevant, like, people live there, and there's they sell items or whatever. But I'm meant to believe that in this world there are towns that literally consist of 5 buildings and 5 people. Even a game like Skyrim, like there's towns in that game where you'll show up and it's like a handful of houses and that's it. And it because the limitations of building a game with that system. But if you look at a Final Fantasy game, there's always a huge amount of city that you're just not exploring. You can, like Final Fantasy IX especially, the actual gameplay takes place within like 3 or 4 streets in that city, but you can see this huge sweeping city, so you feel like it's a real living, breathing place in this world, that would make sense whether it was a video game city or not. And like, I think Undertale could have had some of that, and I think it would have been better for it.
Well, Snowdin was a pretty big town.
Yeah, Snowdin felt pretty good, and I like some of the areas where you do see more background. Obviously, like Ben said, the gray area towards the end could have looked better, but it did at least suggest that there was this city you were walking over, and like that you were in a place, that you were walking through a place, as opposed to like the part where you're in the caves where you turn on the lights and everything, and it's just like suspended hallways in a black void. Like, where is this? What is this?
Now, this isn't really an excuse for the game design, but there is at least the idea that things were sort of deliberately constructed in it's a lampshade hang, I guess, that monsters love puzzles and like winding dungeons and things.
Yeah, the puzzles are definitely an element of that, and like the ruins are definitely designed in a way that is like that, and is a single hallway full of puzzles, and the game like points that out for sure.
So
the caves, though, I don't think there's really any defense. Well,
I think it could apply to the whole.
I don't know. Maybe.
Well, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if that excuse covers the caves and everything, but yes.
Right. There's a lot of things about this game that are minimal in a really good way that I don't think would have been better otherwise. This game would not be better with voice acting.
Oh,
like,
certainly
the
not.
sound
I don't think most
design
games would.
is perfect because they used sound effects that sound like the fonts that they're showing. You know,
The sound design is perfect. The sound design is like is the one. I think the sound design might be the one thing about this game that's like completely beyond reproach.
Yeah, I think the moment that, because like when I think about this game, like the dramatic moment in the game that sticks out the most to me is when it says, like, it's a dramatic moment where it says you are filled with determination, but it spells it out one letter at a time with spaces between it. You are filled with determination. And I was like, I just remember feeling like, oh fuck yeah, you know, when I saw that.
Yeah,
and
it was a
you
hype-ass
could
moment.
not have done that with voice acting or
along
without
with
text.
along with the musical beat that plays at that moment.
Yeah.
It's like that
Bum,
that
bum, 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 bum.
Yeah, that one.
Man, that fucking fight, dude.
I don't think the music could have been any better, because I think, like, Toby Fox
these beats are banging, bro. These beats are off the charts.
Right.
They're radical.
But I'm just saying that I think it is possible for Undertale to have been a better game just by having little things that it could have done, like having, you know, more graphical budget or a more imaginative layout of its world, or just being able to spend maybe a little more time with the characters and in the story to like really feel like you knew them.
Here's
and what
another
they were
point
about,
that we've
you know?
previously discussed, which is, I mean, I would call Undertale a 10 out of 10 game for me. And you convinced me previously that doesn't mean that it has to be perfect.
Right.
It's just, you know, one of those legendary games that you really love and that you'd play again, and super good. And so on that basis, and you know, that applies to, you know, best game ever. It could still be the best game ever, theoretically. Yeah. Despite not being perfect. So,
it just can be topped. You know, if another game comes out that's even better, then that has to become the best game ever.
That's absolutely possible, and that will always be possible.
I might be totally out of whack here. I might be the only person in the world, but I think maybe there are some technical things that could have been improved on, like the graphics and the layouts.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that I actually would have preferred to be a little different would be the writing. Not in every way, but in certain parts where certain parts tried a little hard through their writing to sell the emotional thing.
What's an example of that?
Like, mostly towards the end. Just like the sheer number of lines that Asgore gets as he's dying, trying to sell him as like the nicest guy, and the sheer number of times that Azrael has to say like, "Oh, why do I feel this way? You know, why are you being so nice to me? What's happening to my heart?"
Here's a series of questions.
I see what you're saying.
Here's a series
there
of
were
questions
times
that were raised for me throughout the game.
Yeah.
When I'm going through the caves, why does it just so happen that there's a bunch of text scrawls on all the walls that just happen to be in order and tell me the story of this world?
Oh, come on. That's totally understandable that they record their history.
I don't have an answer for you.
Like, why do they record it that way, though? Like, it's a bunch of text crawls in order
it's
just
a museum.
because
I
you're
don't know.
passing through this area. Or when you go to when you're on your way to Asgore and like you keep running into monsters and each one is picking up the story where the last monster left off and telling you what happened in the past. These monsters, which isn't even in character for these monsters, for them to be telling you this part of the story and speaking normally, you know? Like, those little things took me out of it in a way where I was like, this is a way too convenient way to do exposition, to have it, you know, dimed out just right at the right pace, but it's not in a way that makes sense in the context of what's actually happening.
I think that both of those things that you mentioned are like deliberately. Okay, whether they're successful or not, I don't know, but I think that those are both deliberate immersion breaks.
That's possible.
Deliberate gamey moments.
With a scene like that, you're making a trade-off of, you know, keeping the world feel 100% intact to, in the case of the monsters delivering the lines, which is one of my favorite parts in the whole game, you're making a trade for an emotional payoff. And in my personal opinion, I think it was totally worth it.
I like how this podcast has just become a review of Undertale.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. It's It's all to getting to the core of the matter here.
I mean, at least we're still talking about what makes a good game.
Right.
Well,
Through the lens
here's what
of
I want to
Undertale.
know, actually. Like, what I really want to ask each of you is that if you got to choose the winner of Best Game Ever, what would you have picked?
Final Fantasy VII.
Like, and
Forever.
I can pick any game at all.
Yeah, you can pick any game. What would you pick as the winner of Best Game Ever? Hippo,
That's a good question.
Do you have an answer?
Probably Dark Souls. Because
Cool.
I could play that over and over again forever.
Ben?
I mean, Dark Souls is a pretty strong contender. God, I came into this podcast about the best game ever without having prepared an answer to this question.
You know, now that I'm thinking about it, I think right now I might fucking pick Undertale.
Yeah.
Even though I fucking railed against it and was like, this is fucking bullshit. It could never beat Final Fantasy VII. It can't beat Ocarina of Time. I think I might. Right now, I'm kind of feeling like Undertale is like my favorite game ever.
I'm kind of with you. I think it needs some time to sit and like, you know, we need the benefit of hindsight to really know if it's the best game ever. But its pedigree is impressive and its list of accomplishments is long.
I have always held like the idea that my favorite game is whatever I can think of when somebody asks me that question. Because I'm never thinking of it at any other point. So it just becomes something like, yeah.
I might pick Binding of Isaac.
That's cool. So that's your Call of Duty.
I fucking love Yeah, it is, but better.
That's fine.
I fucking love Binding of Isaac. I think it's like a brilliantly designed game.
Well,
It appeals to me in like every way that a game can.
I'm with you.
I love the shit out of it to the point that I might even call it the best game ever.
You know, I was thinking about this, and I talk about this in the review. Probably my favorite thing in a game is that feeling of like slow progression up to an ultimate super duper awesome best ending ever. And so like in that sense, like Chrono Trigger is one that does that. You can get like good endings along the way in various ways, but if you really work at it and really do the extra mile in the game, you are rewarded with like the ultimate super duper best ending. Everything works out. Another game like that is Radiant Historia. And I really like it when they fake you out. You get like a good ending, but it's not perfect. And then you go investigate, and you actually both those games happen to be time travel games, like Undertale is. It's a good formula for that, I guess. And so you put in the work, and you get your best ending ever.
In Undertale.
Well, sure you do. When you reset the game, you're going back in time.
Okay, sure.
But Undertale, man, Undertale does that too. But like Undertale does that to get the true pacifism ending, the ending where you meet Asriel. Like that's where Chrono Trigger or Radiant Historia ends. They end with the Asriel fight. But Undertale, in my opinion, continues after that with a whole new thing with the genocide ending. And in playing that, there's all this other shit that comes out of the woodwork that really puts it like way over the top in its own category in a way that no game I've ever played has done before. So it's like it gave me every single thing I wanted and then like just a fuckload more. So, you know, there's nothing like it for me. It was by far the most big life experience out of probably any game I've ever played. Yeah.
You know, I kind of just want to go over all the reasons that that I don't love Undertale.
Sure. And what's your favorite game?
And I think Undertale is great. Oh, I already said it was Dark Souls.
But, right.
But it's funny because Dark Souls, my reason is opposite of Gibbons or Hippo's rather, because Hippo said that Dark Souls is a game he feels he can always.
I'm back.
Okay, good.
Didn't even know you were gone.
Yeah, no one knew. All right.
God damn it! Hippo was saying how Dark Souls is a game he can pick up and play anytime. He can play it over and over again and keep playing it. I actually don't really like playling Dark Souls.
You still haven't beat it, right?
Yeah, I've never beaten it. I've played up through Ornstein and Smo. But like, I like it more because I like watching it and I like thinking about it, and I find it
so you. That's so you.
I find it so like naturally pleasing because I love the way the controls are, the way that the game feels, that it's a game about, you know, running up to an enemy and timing your attacks right and dodging, and that, like, even though it's an RPG, it completely plays like an action game, you know, and it's sort of the best of both worlds. And I love that every environment is so different, and yet it all feels right together. You know, Dark Souls is a game where there's a lava level, and there's like a ice cave type place. There's like this and that. There's all these
highly
different...
original level designs.
Right. There are all these different like stuff that you usually see in games, but they all flow together so logically that that you don't really
beautiful.
question it that much, even though it would be weird for some of those things to exist.
And
in the same
it doesn't even
place.
make sense. Like Ash Lake, where is that? But it's not.
But
important.
that's what's even cool. Like Ash Lake is my favorite, and
yeah, it's the best.
Ash Lake for me is like I've always said it's like the keystone for like what I appreciate about Dark Souls, which is that
and the fact that it's hidden behind two invisible walls.
Yeah, the fact that
Jesus
you
Christ,
would never see it unless you were like really into like either you heard about it from someone or you were just exploring this game down to the teeth. And it's this magical, ethereal, strange world that seems to be underneath the world. Like it's a lake that's underneath the entire world somehow. And you go down there and there's two fucking hydras and then like this ancient dragon king who doesn't say anything, and he just gives you a dragon head and now you can breathe fire. You know, it's like it's insanity. But like that's like the most magical feeling place in the game, you know.
Totally,
and like
totally.
I don't think for me, like the coolest things about games, these are the things I value the absolute most, are the cathartic feeling of movement, like, you know, just feeling good controlling your character, and having a world that I'm interested in. Like, pretty much world building and catharsis. Those are like the two biggest things. So I'm a huge fan of Ocarina of Time. It's actually my second favorite game because in comparison to all of the other Zelda games, and like I feel like this is something that no one talks about enough when they talk about Zelda, they all have totally different controls. Like, even though they're all the same basic controls, like the way Link moves changes a lot.
Sure.
And like if you play, say, Twilight Princess or The Wind Waker, Link kind of controls like a motorcycle, where like you hold forward and you like sort of steer him left and right, and he moves in like a weird sort of circular fashion, whereas in Ocarina of Time he moves more like a 2D character. He moves exactly as much as you press the control stick. When you let go, he stops. When you touch to the side, he turns to the side, you know. And you just have a more like direct control that feels very, I mean, I could see thinking it feels a little stiff maybe, but like I don't know. I always feel like it's like every step has weight to it. Everything Link does in that game has a certain weight to it, and like the way controlling him feels is so good that there was a point when I was playing that game on a live stream, and I was just like, I was taking song requests and people were like telling me songs to sing, and I was just doing side flips and backflips in Kakariko Village for like 45 minutes. I was just doing backflips and
Was
side
it a
flips.
good time?
Yeah, it was great because, you know, you can just flip off of everything. You can, you know, just start flipping off of ledges and like and like watching how he reacts to different elevation changes and stuff. And it's just like it feels so good to watch him flip around in that game. And you know, The Wind Waker like has almost the same feel, but The Wind Waker is also, you have to get in a boat. You know, like you're on this little island and you can roll around a little bit, but then you get in a boat and you sail somewhere. And being in the boat is cool as an idea, but it doesn't feel as good. Where in Ocarina of Time, I could just literally side flip across the whole world if I wanted to. That's what all the speed runs are, you know, because side flipping is the fastest way to travel. So if you watch a speed run, they'll just side flip through the whole fucking game, you know, and it looks crazy. But like, and the world is very dense and intricate, and everyone in it has their own story that they're sort of living out that has nothing to do with you unless unless you make yourself a part of it, which is a great thing about Dark Souls. All the NPCs have their own game they're playing, you know, like each of them is the main character of their own story, and each of them is basically, if you failed, this is what you would become. you know?
Yeah,
They're all other heroes from other timelines, as Sunbro, you know, points out. He's like, you know,
right.
time is fucked up in Lordran, and everyone here is from their own game, but they all fuck up. They all die, you know, except Sunbro, if you keep him alive through the whole game. So yeah, like, I like that. I like it when the world sort of exists without you. And Undertale does a pretty good job of that, where it has the characters show up in the bar, and you know, they continue to have their own dialogue together and their own things that they're up to, even though the game is so short that they can't really get up to a lot, you know.
That's true.
You don't see a lot of things going on in the world, but it's nice that they have those things, you know.
You know, in that sense, I definitely think that all the characters of the game exist to make you like them. And like you said, it might not have been as much time as would be ideal, but their function...
Are you back to talking about Undertale now?
Briefly, yes. Okay. It's just that the characters, to me, I like them all, but they really are simply a tool to attach you to the world, to exercise, to put you through the exercise of playing Undertale and making the decisions that you make when you play that game based on those feelings. And it really is most effective if you really care about the characters. And for me, I was totally on board. I like every single character there a ton, except for Alphys, who's kind of an asshole, but she's okay. But you know what? I want to talk for a second, just to finish up what you were saying before. The way you were describing all those things, and the way each of us have talked about like our favorite games, I really think shows the kind of person we are, and as a result, like why we like the kind of games we like. Like you're describing all these, your appreciation for like the construction of the world and the way it all feels, even though you don't really play a ton of games. Like Dark Souls, you've never beat, it's your favorite game, but you like to step back and appreciate it as like a big piece of art altogether. Yeah. And then like Ben, like Binding of Isaac is like his favorite game because Ben likes to just sit down for hours and just like play a game and just like get into it, like master it. He played what would you play? Orb of Zot, Ben? You played that like
a fucking Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup.
Yeah. And so like those kinds of
took me a year and a half to beat it.
So congratulations. And then like Gib, I don't know, Gib seems like he's looking for like lighthearted, like fun most of the time when he's playing games.
He plays fucking Dark Souls.
Well,
that was his favorite game.
Yeah, but he plays it in a way to kind of goof around. Is that wrong?
You don't know me.
Well, here,
I don't think that is right. I think he's doing the same thing I'm doing and just getting immersed in a dang old game.
I like games.
You don't talk about it that much.
Undying on the lips.
Yeah, there you go. See,
I want to kill things in Dark Souls.
And then there's me. And then there's me, who more than anything likes to play games where a hero goes on a journey and achieves self-actualization, clearly a projection of my deep personal insecurities and a desire to fulfill them. All of these things are what make each of our favorite games, and it's completely a projection of our values and the kind of person we are.
I would feel a little guilty picking Binding of Isaac as game of all time because it's so deficient in the story category, and like I do like game stories, but I don't. Yeah, I guess I just don't feel like they're what I really play games for.
You know,
right?
Yeah,
that's
it's funny because I like with Dark Souls, I can kind of like rest assured that I do think it's a cool story, but I don't really value the like actual narrative that much. Like, I like that that there's so much going on and that it sort of feels like it exists without me. But like the actual specifics of like who the characters are and what they mean, the lore has never really grabbed me that much.
And because of that,
it's fun.
Yeah.
There's like no way that you'd love a game like Undertale as much as someone like me. Just because our priorities are so different in that sense.
Well, like,
or like Jesse, I guess.
My little brother Shade, who's a big fan of both Dark Souls and Undertale, he gets deep into lore and deep into knowing the background info.
Right.
You know, and
I like the lore a lot in Dark Souls. That's probably my favorite thing.
Like, he really only started getting into Undertale once he started like learning all the crazy background stuff, all the stuff.
Did he get into it after playing it, or like to start to play?
Yeah, no, he played through it.
Yeah,
he did the pacifist run. He was doing the genocide run, but then like he just started coming up to me like every day with all these new facts he'd learned about the game. You know, telling me all this stuff that he'd heard, because I didn't like watch anything of the game after beating it. I just kind of played through and was done. But then like I kept hearing new things about it from other people, and like all of it is very cool to know that it's all there. But that kind of stuff doesn't make me like love the game more. I'm just like, oh, that's really neat, you know.
It's cool that it's there. It itself is not like anything mind-blowing.
Yeah.
The story, I mean, the only thing about the Dark Souls story that I think really stands out to me as great is the whole fire metaphor and everything that they try to do with that.
Yeah, that was very effective and
But
cool.
like Ocarina of Time, I could not give a single fuck about the narrative of that game, even
Right,
though when I
nobody
was
does.
a kid, it was the greatest narrative I'd ever seen before in my life. You know, like when I was a kid, like growing
People
up,
who think that now just have not explored.
yeah,
enough.
growing up, Ocarina of Time was my favorite game purely from having watched my cousin play it and having never seen a game with a story before, and I literally never heard
What,
of
like
a game having a
1998?
story. It was probably 99 or 2000 probably when I watched him play through it.
You got to play more Final Fantasy past
Well,
Digi.
all I had was an N64. I'd never seen any other consoles
Conker's Bad
before.
Fur Day, greatest story ever told.
Yeah, and I found out about that one later, and I always wanted to know the story because the story seemed really interesting.
I'm making
I
that
just
up.
didn't
I've
play the
never
game.
even played it.
Oh, it's got phenomenal. I don't
I
know
do
about
wanna
the
play it.
story, but the dialogue and the voice
Yeah,
acting
yeah.
is fucking incredible in that game. Unfortunately, I don't like playing the game at all. I think it's boring and shitty. But but the
Is it a
dialogue's great.
collectathon like Banjo?
Huh?
Is it a collectathon like Banjo? I always got that
It is,
impression.
it is exactly like Banjo-Kazooie.
It's
Okay,
not
alright, there
though,
you go.
because Banjo-Kazooie is more of a platformer like that's more skill based. Like it has like platforming challenges. Conker feels to me more like an adventure game.
Yeah,
it's
it
sort of
looked
like
that way.
Psychonauts, where like every level is just something different. And I think that's the biggest problem is that like every single place you go has a new mechanic for you to learn, but none of them are like fun. You know?
Oh, and speaking of best game ever, Psychonauts 2, guys, go give your money to Tim Schafer, the old fucking hack himself. $3 million, and it'll make Psychonauts 2. Fuck
I
you,
think
Tim
Psychonauts
Schafer.
is
You're dead.
super overrated.
It's like that weird underrated, overrated sort of game.
Well, the
Like,
story
the
and
minority
characters
loves
are
it
great,
so
but the
much.
actually playing the game is just frustrating as fuck. Especially the last level is the worst thing I've ever played before.
But dude, Ben, remember that time in that game where you're like talking with the girl and you're like, "Oh, we gotta come up with a plan," and she's like, "Yeah, we gotta do something. Oh, we gotta go save everyone." She's just, "We should make out." That was probably the funniest thing in any game I've ever played.
My favorite part is when you find the two like quiet kids sitting up on the roof. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's just it's not in the story. It's not a cutscene. It's just at some point you're walking around. You can go up on a roof and like the two like nice quiet like I think maybe they're implied to be religious kids.
Yeah.
A boy and a girl. They're sitting up there, and if you listen to them, they're just like, "Look at all the people down there. They look like tiny little ants."
yeah.
And the other one's like, "They are ants.
Yeah.
Worthless little ants."
That was amazing.
And if you hit them, they like respond to it, but in a real like they try to be nice about it. But you can tell they're really hurt emotionally.
Hey, but by the way,
you use this. Wait, you do a psychic punch on them, and one of them's like, "Hey, haha! Look who's still punching!"
God, that
your
writing is
character's like, "Oh,"
amazing.
your character's like, "Oh God, what have I done?"
You know, I told
So
that
good.
kissing story once when me and my friends were in line for lunch in college somewhere, and like as I got to the end and just yelled out like, "We should make out!" This guy behind me in line, he's just like, "Dude, you do that too?" Like, yeah, I don't, if you go up if you're in a party and you go up to enough girls and you say that, one of them's gonna make out with you. And
Man,
yeah, that guy was alpha as fuck. My role
just
model.
fucking. It led you to some important life lessons.
Some important game
Anyways,
lessons.
you know, there's only ever for me been one game that like I legitimately care about the story, and that's the Mass Effect 1 and 2.
And is that just because it did so much to give the characters and make them like fleshed out people?
It's the only game I've played where like I just honest to God found it really interesting. Like the characters in the world are so fleshed out and just like it's a game that has like any story I could name that like any like HBO drama or anything like that that's considered to be like a great narrative or something. It's as good as that. Like the story is legitimately as good as any story I've ever heard before.
Yeah,
And
Commander Shepard, I'm the Asari lady. Nice to meet you. I'm super attracted to you. I love you more than anyone I've ever known in my entire life. You've completely opened me up, and let's immediately have sex right now. 10 out of 10 writing, dude.
Sounds like a
10
compelling
out of
story
10
to me.
writing.
I will say that not not everything in Mass Effect is equally interesting. Because my favorite in the trilogy is the second game, and there are some of the characters you meet like late into the game are just kind of whatever, who cares?
Yeah.
But like you know, I think Garrus is a fantastic character. His whole arc is great. Tali's is a really fun character.
I have a deep affection for the Quarian people.
Right, yeah. Rex is great, you know, throughout all the games, and like the entire everything that has to do with the genophage and the fucking, what are they called? The race that they are.
No, not Asari. The other guys.
Rex's race. The Krogans. Everything that has to do with the Krogans and the genophage and Moradin Solus is like the most interesting shit ever. Moradin especially is my favorite character in like any game because
I haven't met him yet.
He's in the second game. You'll meet him pretty early on, and he's a doctor who he literally created the genophage and committed the genocide of killing all of the Krogans. And he joins your team. And
that's going to cause some tension.
Well, the thing about it is, though, that he did it because he was trying to save the galaxy, you know, and to him
just
it was...
like when we nuked Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
To him it was like, you know, deciding to choose the needs of the many over the needs of the few, but then the long-term consequences of it make it questionable whether it really was better or worse, you know, and so, like, he sort of has to grapple with deciding whether or not he still feels that way, and then has a fantastic payoff in the third game. It's by far the best thing about the third game is the end of Moradin and the Krogan's story.
I've heard.
It's just legit fascinating, and the game just has so much information about everything, like... Because not only do you go to planets and you can, like, read little... You know, you'll find text logs in places and, like, learn little details here and there, but then the game has, like... an insanely huge codec you can read through, and it's like a lot of it's voiced, so you'll have like a narrator like telling you like audio books
let me
about
ask you
the world.
Something, about that. Another game that has a massive log like that is Final Fantasy 13 and all the sequels.
Yeah.
Why is it that it's so much more enjoyable to read through the codex of Mass Effect than Final Fantasy 13? What's
Probably
the
because
there?
Here's the funny thing. I haven't played 13, but I am playing Lightning Returns, and I have been reading all the codex in that and having a great time with it.
Well, that blows me away that you actually read through them all.
Well, because
I hated reading them.
That
in 13.
Lightning Returns is batshit insane. Like, the story is the craziest thing that I've ever heard of, because it takes place in a world where everyone has become immortal and no one new has been born in 500 years, and everyone who is still alive has been alive for 500 years, and lightning has become...
That sounds great. That sounds like a fucking, like crazy fantasy world for me. I would love to live in that world.
Insane. And lightning is now, like, an angel working for God, trying to, like, save everyone's souls because the rapture's about to happen and reset the world.
I so wish that was an original game and did not involve lightning.
Yeah,
only that were the case.
The way you're describing Final Fantasy 13-2 Lightning Returns to me sounds awesome.
It's 13-3.
It's the third one, not the second one.
For the love of God, do not play the second one.
The thing about Lightning Returns, I mean, the characters themselves are like planks of wood. Like, they're not interesting characters, but the world is just so insane that I'm like fascinated with it, and I keep learning new things, and there's so many like gods and random bits of like lore that have nothing to do with anything, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, I'm not necessarily saying that it's like a great story, but it's just fascinating that a game is like this. And to me, it's sort of like how every RPG kind of ends with you like killing God. Right. And it feels like this game is what happens like if you had already killed God and then the world got really weird afterwards.
Kind of like the end of God of War 3, I guess.
Yeah, a little bit.
I always thought that was interesting, and they just don't describe, like, the world is fucked, but that's the end.
Yeah, he just kind of ruins everything, and like, and you know, most of these RPGs, they don't really usually have much of a denouement. They don't really show you what happened after you changed the entire nature of reality, and like this.
Well, the gods are implied to not necessarily.
You just get all your party members, stand them on the bow of their airship, and have them all look up at the sky as like the rubble of their past
and then
world,
have the main
like,
character
down,
jump
like,
off
falling
and disappear
stars.
and not be
Terra
heard
did
of
that.
again.
Nobody cares about like how Locke marries Celes and settles down to like become and it started adventuring like mercenary business. Nobody gives a shit. We just know that they won, and then they can just do whatever. You can just fill it in.
It's really hilarious because on the one hand, I feel like the reason they can get away with doing this story in Lightning Returns is that it's a sequel to a popular game, so people will buy it. But
right.
But I think it's a terrible sequel because it takes place 500 years later and everyone's totally different now because they've aged 500 years.
Not to mention the fact that 13.2 ends on a huge cliffhanger, and to wait like 500 years is just the worst fucking thing you could possibly do. I'm still mad.
If it wasn't like 50 hours long, I'd be tempted to play Final Fantasy 13 and the sequels just to see, because sometimes I end up liking things that nobody else likes, and I would be curious if I could find anything to love about it.
Here's the thing, Lightning Returns is a lot more well-liked by critics than the first two. Like, I don't know about if fans like it, but like critics in general were like, this game's actually kind of fun to play. And it's, like, I'm not far into it, but it seems like it's very short. But it also seems like you can fuck up so badly so early on that you will need to play it twice. Because this is a game you can fail. Yeah. It takes place over the course of 13 days, and you basically have to save enough souls by the end of 13 days by doing, like, you have to get through all the main missions, and then you can do a certain number of side missions if you want to get, like, a perfect, run. But if you fuck up and you don't do the missions in time, then you just lose, and you get a game over, but you're allowed to do, like, a new game plus, and, like, even if you fail, and sort of keep all your weapons. So I don't feel too bad about the idea that I'm probably going to fail because I fucked up so bad on day one that I feel like I'm already set back forever. Okay. And it's a little bit confusing because the game, like, as if in response to the previous games, is like totally open. Like, you just go wherever you want and do whatever you want to an extent. And so, like, I got
This is
lost.
Obviously a reaction to the whole
I kind of got lost trying to find my way around and, like, figure out where everything is. And I felt like, oh, shit, I don't really... Like, I kind of don't like the mechanic of the time thing because I feel like I really wanted to get engrossed in this world.
That's a dangerous mechanic to use.
Like crazy. Yeah. You know, it's a lot like Dead Rising where you... Right. It's so strict about being on time that you... Like, it's almost at odds with what you actually want to do in Dead Rising, which is to just go fucking kill zombies with weird, weapons and shit.
Yeah, I've heard mixed things about the Dead Rising.
I think Dead Rising's a fantastic game. After watching them play it on Game Grumps and being reminded of it, I think it's fucking awesome.
If I might bring this conversation back to the topic of the best game.
Sure.
Let me. I'll just start a whole new thing.
Okay.
My pet peeve is people who think that a best game and a favorite game should be two different things.
Those people deserve to be firebombed.
I think they should all be consigned to the flames.
Yes. My favorite game is... Things. No, you're different from your own face. Are you recording, Jesse?
I am recording.
Then let's sync it
up.
Fuck?
Jesse's here?
He showed up, yeah.
I showed up.
Okay, on the count of three, say Misty. 1, 2, 3, Misty.
Misty.
Okay, good. No, okay, Jesse, defend your position. Why is it okay to separate them?
Well, okay. I wouldn't call Crazy Taxi the best game ever made.
Well, that's just objectively wrong.
Okay.
But I would totally call it my favorite game ever made.
Well, why isn't it the best?
Isn't the game's function to give you enjoyment?
Wait, I have a question, Jesse.
Yeah.
Would you say it's exclusively your favorite game?
No, I have like 5 favorite games ever made.
Is one of those your also your pick for their best game?
I guess. I don't fucking know.
Is it Lion King?
Yes. Lion King for Sega Genesis is the best game ever made, objectively.
No.
And that's the end of the conversation.
The monkeys costed all of its points.
But it's got the hippos, right? Hippocrit is your favorite game.
What?
Yeah, I'm with you, Ben. I hate when people try to make... I hate any best game ever list that goes by impact and then has games that aren't even good anymore on the list.
Like, this year I played Downwell for 500 hours and fucking loved every second of it. On the other hand, I thought Undertale was a pretentious piece of shit, but everyone likes Undertale and it was such a good thing for the indie scene that I'm going to name it the best game of the year.
I'm glad you guys are talking about this now, cuz I sort of mentioned before, I'm going to sound like a hypocrite now, but I really do take impact on the world into my examination of what I think is the best game ever.
Well, that's wrong.
Well,
that's wrong of you.
I disagree, because what I value in a game is the influence it's going to have not only on just me, but on everyone.
Bullshit.
Like, I really love Undertale, but I think that it has more implication. I like Undertale because I see it.
That doesn't make it a better game.
Undertale is a quiz.
Here's a
that
question
I want
I have.
everyone to
That
take to
doesn't
learn
make
about
the
themselves.
game any
Nate.
better than it is.
Yes, it does. What?
Do you think that Undertale is the best game ever because of its impact or because of your value of its impact?
Definitely because of my value.
Like,
of its
if you
impact.
didn't give a fuck about Undertale, but it had a huge amount of impact, would you still call it the best game ever, or would you be like, it's an
Definitely
overrated
not.
piece of shit?
Yeah, I would certainly say that.
So it is ultimately just you saying that, like, it's the game you like the most, and therefore it's the favorite. It's just the reason it's the game you like the most is because it has impact.
I mean,
I guess that just happens to be what I value.
honestly-
right?
You know, the reason that I haven't been talking a lot
Yeah.
is that I feel so weakly about this whole subject. I just
Well, then
don't
get
care
out of my
what the
podcast!
best game ever
It is kind
I
of
just
totally
like
stupid
video
and
games.
pointless.
Well, we already
fair enough. Okay, yes.
Games are fun. I like them.
I agree. Like I said Binding of Isaac before. I'm not super committed to that choice.
Okay,
I
no one's
really
judging
wouldn't
you.
say that I have a strong pick for best
Hey
game
guys,
ever.
go make a
favorite
Pro
game ever.
Crastinators wiki and put Ben Saint's favorite game is Binding of Isaac. It's official.
Whatever. But like if I'm picking one, it's I honestly don't see how you can defend any other position than mine because there's no objective standard for how good something
Right.
is. Therefore, the only metric of how good it is how much you like it. Therefore, your favorite and the best should be synonymous.
I agree. I think
Mage,
that the best
Mage,
game of
why is
2015 is
Undertale
Dengeki Bunko Fighting Climax.
Fine. Just
Wait,
talk all over me.
That's
Is Mage here?
Yes, Mage is in the call.
Are you recording?
Oh.
Are you recording your audio?
Mage, we can barely hear you.
Wait, you are recording your audio, right? Well, you gotta record your audio. It's gonna be all fucked up. Don't speak until you're recording your audio. All right.
It sounds like you're
okay.
talking into a headset that's on the opposite end of the room.
Guys, it's gonna be blank sounds. Somebody say something. What's
Yeah, well, I don't know what Hippo was trying to say earlier.
Oh, yeah, Gib, were you saying
Was I? I was.
You got mad at me for cutting you off, but
Oh yeah, that's true.
Oh, I forgot.
Okay.
now you sound
Much
Sounds
better.
better.
You're recording,
But are
right?
you
You're recording? You gotta
No.
start recording right now.
Now.
You're recording?
Yes.
Okay, let's sync up.
Okay. On the count of three, say Misty's my favorite Pokemon trainer. I like Red Blue the best. It's the best game. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Misty's my favorite
Misty.
Pokemon
Fuck
trainer.
you,
and
Nate, you
Red
piece
Blue
of
is my favorite
shit.
Pokemon game. Okay, go on, Gib. Hippo.
I have no idea what I'm doing here.
Mage,
Here-
what is your opinion on the best game ever?
Yeah, what's your favorite game?
Undertale?
No, don't say that. Yeah. What do you think is the best game ever, and is it the same as your favorite game?
Yeah? I mean, like, I don't particularly believe in best game ever, quote unquote. But my favorite game is definitely Undertale. And I.
Really?
Yes.
Shock.
Would you say of all
fa-
time?
fair enough.
Yeah, of all time. Of all time, would you say?
At this moment in time, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can't
Yeah.
really have one favorite game of all time because it's going to change.
Well, yeah, but you know,
Well,
all of
the
these
point is,
questions
at
are
this-
in the context of
Okay,
the time that
the
they're asked.
phrase "of all
All right,
time" is a weird phrase because
Right.
it's
It's
never of all
time-dependent.
time.
Yeah,
Like,
Right.
that's the thing.
I mean, it means up to now.
Yeah.
yeah,
It means right now.
It should. That's what
Right
it
now,
should.
my
That's the
favorite
phrase we
game
should adopt.
is
Instead of saying my
not
favorite
this-
of all time, we should be saying my favorite now, currently.
No, that doesn't sound as
that's true.
impressive.
That's what I
That's
usually
the
say.
whole point. That's the whole point.
Because I feel like of
doesn't
all
get
time,
the clicks.
Well, I feel like of all time implies that, and I think this is how people think of it, and this is why like people sometimes vote for those older games that they don't care about anymore. Is
Yeah.
that they think of it in terms of like what game they liked the longest, like
Which is
Well,
a perfectly
I mean,
valid way to like a game.
To be honest, that's why I'm picking Isaac. I haven't played the new Isaac, but I loved it so much, and I played it for so long, and I still think it's a great and amazing game.
Yeah.
Like, right now, I care way more about Undertale than about Binding of Isaac, and yet I'm not comfortable picking Undertale just because it's so new.
Right. I'm glad you brought this up. I wanted to talk about this too, and it seems like I think this shows kind of maybe the context of the gaming industry, or maybe just us as consumers of it, with like YouTube and Let's Plays and all this stuff now. So like the previous winners of the poll were, you know, Final Fantasy VII and Ocarina of Time, which are really old games that have they're
so
like
you're
legends.
about the gamepad FAQs thing.
Yeah, the concept of a best game ever and what it means. So those games
That's
won.
that's kind of what inspired the discussion.
Right. Those games won kind of based on their legacy status, and I think that maybe it had something to do with the way that games were coming out and the way people appreciate games. But these days, like, what are the most popular games in the world? Like League of Legends? Stuff that's, like, quickly consumable and can be, like, completed rapidly and is like mass consumable. And I wonder if it doesn't say that as a culture of people playing games, we have more interest in something like Undertale that's super new and might not even last very long, but our focus is attuned to these sort of, you know, like spurts of popularity, less so than it is to the big context of all the games we've ever played. Our focus is shifting. I'm wondering. I'm wondering if you guys agree with that.
It's an interesting point.
Those sure were a whole bunch of words you just said.
I think a big part, now that you've made me think about it, I think a big part of the reason that we're going to see a shift away from Zelda and Final Fantasy winning everything forever is that right now it's happening, and in 5 years it will be the case that gamers are not mostly in their late 20s anymore.
That's true.
Because the thing is, there's a very clear bias towards the year 1997 here, right?
Yeah.
Like a time period when like the majority of and I've seen enough Game FAQs polls to know like the general age of the site, because they'll ask you how old you are and things like that. Which is us for the most part, right? Yeah. Around our age is like the median age of the website, and it's a lot of people who are in their late 20s who played these games and they were young. And the reason that I know that has to be the case, because on the one hand, I do think that Ocarina of Time and Final Fantasy VII hold up extremely well, and that both of them are games that could compete with all the modern games right now. And the sort of oldest games that still get like to the top of the list are Super Nintendo games, right? Like Super Metroid and Chrono Trigger and Mario RPG and A Link to the Past. Yeah. But they're all games from the 90s, and like you never see NES games getting in here. And if you were trying to make if you were trying to say that these games were legacy games, that it was just because of how influential it was, we would have NES games. We would have those old games. And there's people from that era who still legitimately feel as strongly towards those games as we do towards Ocarina of Time.
Right. Like, how come Mario 1 isn't on the poll? Where's Mario 1?
But don't you think that it's gonna... I mean, nobody says that the best movie ever made is like anything made in the last decade. Everyone always says, Citizen Kane.
Well, that really depends on who you ask, though, right? Because
okay, but I'm talking majority. I'm talking cultural consensus on the best movie ever is definitely old movies.
There's this great article that I'd love to dig up or something for this, but like there's a huge identity crisis when it comes to video games where people don't look back. People don't play this article. It was written by a guy who was teaching a game design class, and he asked everyone in the class like to raise their hand if they're a fan of the Elder Scrolls series. And like a majority of the class raises their hands, right? And then he asks them like how many have played Skyrim, and like most of them have their hands up. And then he asks like how many of you have played Oblivion, and like more than half of them lower their hands. And then he asks how many have played Morrowind, and he gets down to like 2 people. And he asks how many of you have played Daggerfall, and it's nobody,
Right.
And
what a fucking hipster.
Well, that's just a shameful degradation of the term fan.
I'm so glad you brought this up, Digi, because it really reminds me of the whole conceit behind the remake of Final Fantasy VII. And the question is, why is it being made from an artistic perspective? There is no reason. The game is fine.
Because
You can play it
it'll
anytime.
sell, and people
That's-
don't want to look back at the old
Right.
one.
There is absolutely nothing preventing anyone from playing that game. They just want to, make it again so they can
Right.
sell it again.
And
that's it.
And I think the reason that some of the like A Link to the Past and Ocarina of Time specifically are the older Zeldas that always succeed.
Right.
But like personally, I've played all the old Zeldas just 2 years ago. And I liked the first game more than A Link to the Past. I thought it had like more interesting ideas, it had more interesting mechanics, and I think there's a huge contingent of people who just think it's old and they don't want to play it because it's old. And
I'll be honest, that's why I haven't played it yet.
Right. People look at the first game and they think, well, isn't A Link to the Past pretty much the exact same thing except better? And the answer is no. It doesn't play anything alike. I think the first game has better controls because A Link to the Past is really floaty. It has a bad knockback when enemies hit you. It's really frustrating sometimes. Whereas the first game is like whatever you input is exactly what happens on screen. You know exactly how your character moves, stuff like that. The game is completely open-ended. It never tells you where to go. It's all about like just exploring this world and sort of getting lost in it. Whereas A Link to the Past is very streamlined. It tells you exactly where to go next, and you use this item on this specific dungeon, whereas in the first game, like the items are useful forever. You always use everything forever. And like it's a different game, but people don't look at Zelda 1. They look at the games that they've heard of, that Ocarina of Time and Link to the Past were so influential that people just ignore them. But like if the people voting in Game FAQs polls were born like 10 years earlier, like if there were more people from, like, for instance, the Game Grump Danny Sexbang, he's like in his late 30s, and all the games he likes are NES games. Like every game that he considers like a classic that he knows how to play, that he's amazing at, he loves Zelda 1. He likes Zelda 2, and he loves A Link to the Past as well, but like when you see him play the newer games, you can tell he doesn't feel as strongly about them. And it's like if more people his age were voting, we'd get stuff from the 80s. When people our age are voting, we get stuff from the 90s. And I think we're entering a period now where there's a lot of kids who are voting in Game FAQs polls who were like my brother Shade, who is 18 now. He is a legal adult. He was born in 1997. He was born the year Final Fantasy VII came out. So there was never a world for him where Final Fantasy VII wasn't an old-ass game, or Ocarina of Time. The first Zelda he would have seen would have been Twilight Princess.
Oh my god, I cannot believe that. Holy shit.
I guess the idea with games is that because there was technological improvement happening for a while there, new entries in the series are basically just improvements on the previous ones, even though everyone loves Morrowind and everyone hates Oblivion.
Well, but you say improvements, but like I made that video about Final Fantasy VII and the remake. Like, the remake is just, it's not gonna have so many of the things that I love about Final Fantasy VII, like the janky, weird animations that are only done because they couldn't express things the way that I'm sure they wanted to, but that as a result are like one of my favorite things about that game. There's no way to incorporate that sort of thing into the remake.
Well, you know what those things are going to be replaced by is really awkward, stilted
voice acting,
anime dialogue.
I know, dude.
God.
I know. Like, that's why I fucking hate voice acting. I hate voice acting in every sense in games. It should not be there. Let me read the text because my imagination is so much better than the best voice actor you could possibly find.
Quick note on that. That. I understand why everyone reads Papyrus's lines like Snidely Whiplash, but to me, in my head, he never sounded like that.
Me too. I hate it.
And it's really weird. Like, I get it. He goes, yeah. Sounds like an evil laugh.
I mean,
he's tall and thin, so he has like a reedy voice. I get it, but he never sounded like that.
Skeletor, right?
Yeah, he's clearly Skeletor.
He's not jack shit. You're Skeletor. Go burn
that's
your
just not
face
how he
off.
sounds.
That's
just
totally
not how he
sounds
sounds to me.
If you watch like Skeletor literally goes yeah. Like
So
he literally
that
does
does
that.
not inform Papyrus's character
That was
necessarily.
those nyas were
believe
purposely
me,
put in
I
there. I refuse
understand.
to
I
believe
understand
anything
the
else.
logic behind that.
When
but
I
Papyrus
watch-
sounds like this. Hey, baby.
When I watch an Undertale
Papyrus,
fan
motherfucker.
thing on YouTube and they're doing any kind of voice for him that's not Skeletor, I get pissed off.
Well, I get pissed off when they do Skeletor. My
No.
life is suffering. My
He's
life is agony.
objectively Skeletor, and I'll fight. I'll fight anyone.
Whoa. Here's headcanon. Skeletor burned off the rest of his skin and became Papyrus.
Exactly. Now we know.
There you go.
I forgot what the fuck I was gonna say. Something about Final Fantasy VII and Legacy game. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You know the thing, Ben, that you mentioned about like film, that people like old films, but there actually is a sort of cutoff. People like films from like the 50s onwards, because it is the same with where technology
excellent
advanced.
point.
People don't go back. Like you don't see a lot of. Unless it's a real
Like
film buff,
silent movies
you don't
or
see a
whatever?
lot of silent movies on lists. You
Yeah.
might see like Metropolis or something, like if the person is really like, you know,
Or that one about going to the moon and it's
Yeah,
all
like how
weird.
come
Yeah.
Pong never comes up on like best game ever when it did it all, baby? It started
yeah,
it
it
all.
did.
You know?
Digi, you make a good point. I guess there is like a cutoff in technology,
Yeah.
whereas like before that, no one like really considers them
right.
watchable
But
today.
then that's the funny thing though, is that those movies aren't worse. Like, because if
Right.
you do know film buffs, like go watch, you know, Every Frame of Painting talk about Buster Keaton's films and like all the technicality of those that like hasn't even been topped today, you know, and yet you don't see them on anyone's favorites list. You know, people don't talk about them as much. They talk about Casablanca and Citizen Kane because everyone knows about them, and you know they're famous. You know, people don't talk as much about the older movies. I mean, some critics do. I mean, if you get like Roger Ebert, he's gonna talk about all those old ass fucking movies.
Except
and what
that
makes
nigga
them great.
dead.
You know, he is dead, but like his great movies reviews would span the whole history of film because he
Right.
knew the medium, and he knew that even silent movies could do things that movies now can't do. You know, I actually watched a bunch of Metropolis, although I was playing Coheed and Cambria music over it, and I was really interested in like the makeup effects and stuff that are totally different from what they would be now, because like to look right on film, they would like cake on tons of like dark makeup under their eyes and stuff, and it looks really cool. And I was like, man, this movie has a look that I would love to see emulated in modern technology, but like I don't think it has been. And you know, so like even those ancient fucking movies still have things that are interesting that can teach you about film and inspire you and make you think new things.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and games can do the same. You know, going back and playing a game like Zelda 1 really made me think about like, man, I would love to see the Zelda franchise kind of like get back to this. And then like they released the what's it called? Fucking A Link Between Worlds, which is interesting because it plays more like, because they it's a sequel to A Link to the Past, and they were playing it up like, oh, you can choose whichever order you want to do the dungeons in, and it's like A Link to the Past had that in Dark World, but this game does it much more similarly to the first game, where it was like you just kind of find things on your own and pick up whatever weapons you want and use them here and there. You know, it's sort of a hybrid of Zelda 1 and A Link to the Past, like taking the best elements of each and sort of hybridizing them, and it's like cool. I don't think a lot of people would have even known that because they haven't played Zelda 1, you know? But yeah, I think looking back can be interesting. And I think that's why so many indie games that look back and have like, you know, retro feel, but they take like retro ideas and put new spins on them are so big right now.
Yeah.
Because, you know, a lot of people think it's like, oh, it's nostalgia, but it's like Shovel Knight's not popular because everyone who played Shovel Knight had also played Mega Man and Castlevania. It's popular because
Well,
it took those ideas and did something interesting with them, you know.
I'm going to disagree. I think that is part of the reason why it's popular, is because it harkens back to those games from the day.
Well,
that we all
okay,
loved.
but I think that has a lot to do with the context of games coming out today and the way, like, all these big games are these big, like, 3D, Unreal Engine, you know, like, action-adventure shooter games. That's like, when you want to make a game to sell, like, that's what you go to if you
Right.
want to make a
Well-
big AAA game. And people are getting kind of bored with it. And so
Yeah.
when someone makes a game that appeals to
'cause
some other aspect...
What's happening with AAA games is that they're all homogenizing because they have to sell them. They
That's
have to
exactly
sell
it.
so
That's
many
exactly
fucking
it.
copies that they can't
Right.
afford not to sell them to literally everyone. So the game has to appeal to literally everyone. And then the indie games don't have to appeal to basically anybody except for like 10 people.
Except the one making it,
You
basically.
don't have to. Okay, I found a blog the other day. Actually, I was looking at Davu's Twitter, and Devu follows these guys called the Indie Game Advisors.
Oh yeah, it's like a
those are
troll
great.
indie game.
And one of their tweets was like, "There's only one place for your game, Zero Feedback," and it was a link, and it linked to a blog called Zero Feedback that is a blog that collects and reviews games that have been made and posted online, and 3 months or more after being posted have gotten 0 comments from anyone, gone completely unnoticed.
Amazing.
And oh shit! Wait, what were we just saying that got me on this topic?
That games cost $1 million to make, and that they're all
That
appealing to the
indie
same.
games don't have to appeal to anybody.
And I was scrolling through the list, and some of them were really interesting. But one of them was like, some games are made for different audiences. Some games are made to be a meta commentary on gaming in general. Some games aren't meant to be played at all. And the game is like a birthday present. Like, the dev just made the game. It's an interactive cake blower, like candle blower out simulator,
Nice.
made for his friend as a birthday present. And there's 2 versions, like, made on 2 different years. And like the second one is like this weird like line puzzle.
Devu
but
made
the
a
one
game
that was
about
like
Jesse beating up. Who was it? What critic was it that you beat up, Jesse?
Oh, I don't even remember.
Razor Fist. I don't know.
No, it wasn't Razor Fist.
It was that every time you hit them, their sub count was subtracted and put into your sub
Oh
count.
yeah.
Wait, Devu made a game?
Devu's made a bunch of games.
I know he's made games, but I haven't seen any of them.
He's made a few.
I assumed they were
He's
bad.
made a few RPGs that he said actually have a lot of the ideas that Undertale did, and he realized it later.
That's interesting.
It was the Cinema Sins people.
Yeah,
I
it was
think.
Cinema Sins. He made a game where Jesse said he wanted to beat up Cinema Sins, and then Devu made a game where Jesse beats up Cinema Sins and takes their subscribers.
That reminds me of my idea about a YouTuber gambling ring where you can gamble your subscribers, and if you lose, your subscribers go to the
What
winner.
a great idea.
That's
I know,
fucking
right?
hilarious. But anyway,
If only there was some way to transfer subscribers, it would totally work.
I'll
the
agree with
currency
you.
they are.
I'll agree with you on the idea that I'm sure Shovel Knight was like its initial success is based on nostalgia, but like both of my little brothers played that game, and neither one of them has played fuck all old games. Like they have not played a single NES or Super Nintendo game in their
Victor's
fucking
never
lives.
played a Super Nintendo game? That's crazy.
Victor is like super against going back to old games.
Oh,
Like,
kill that nigger for me.
super-
He finds it so hard to play a game that doesn't look pretty that it's like
Disgusting.
that it like kills him.
Terrible.
And although
Fucking film major
I
piece
have
of
I have
garbage.
done God's work by way of Nintendo and
Yeah.
gotten him Final Fantasy VII, and he's
Oh,
starting it
yeah.
up now.
I mean, if he likes pretty games, I mean, forget the Legos. Those pre-rendered backgrounds, man.
They're gorgeous. Yeah, that game looks.
Get the fuck out of here, whoever said that.
I'm just saying, I think by most people's definition of what a pretty game
Well, most
looks
people are
like.
literally retarded.
I'm a
people are
really
retarded.
big fan of static pre-rendered backgrounds. In
the Final
games.
Fantasy
Final
pre-rendered
Fantasy
backgrounds are
VII
the best
looks
environments
so good.
ever
Fuck
made.
anyone who says the graphics are bad. They
Okay,
don't know what the
I'm-
hell they're talking
I know,
about.
I know.
When you're fucking
I just-
walking
okay,
and shit's
ugh.
going on in the background, and there's fucking like cannons flying, and like the weapon is coming towards
Dude,
Junin.
remember how when you walk outside of Eris's church and it's like tiny and it looks like so out of proportion? It's so
Oh, yeah.
adorable
Oh,
and I
yeah.
love it and it's the best.
I'm gonna
best.
when it, when it
everyone,
zooms out in
you
the
guys might
intro
not
and
agree.
it shows the logo on the screen
The whole
over the
city.
city, and then it
It's
zooms
the
right
best
back
shot.
into the train, and then directly to
Man.
gameplay seamlessly. No
Seamless.
breaks.
but-
How did they do that? How did they do that with the camera?
They
You
don't
can't
even.
explain
They
it.
can't
You
even do
explain
that nowadays. I've never seen that in any game ever since then. Before then, the best game ever made,
All right.
and we finally solved
Yeah,
that
but
dilemma. It is objectively.
look at
Final Fantasy VII
look
wins. Yep.
look at Red 13's dad.
over.
Look at his character model. It's a piece of
It's
shit.
great.
All right,
I'm
you,
talking
wait, you
about?
gotta admit though that it would have been.
Look at the fucking aliased jagged edges sometimes when the
I
camera
like
is moving
aliased
and how
jagged
fucking
edges.
janky
Well,
it is.
go
The worse
fucking
the
complain to
graphics are,
Total
the
Biscuit about
more
your
I will
anti-aliasing.
defend
Welcome back, Gib.
Hi, Gib.
I wish. I will say this. I wish
Yeah.
that if they were going to do a Final Fantasy VII remake, then you said that the scene where the train stops and it seamlessly transitions to gameplay.
Yeah.
You can tell the moment where the train stops being a 3D model and starts being part
yes,
of the
you can.
background.
Yes, you
You
can.
can see that moment. That's all. That's the kind of thing that if they were going to do a remake of Final Fantasy VII, just fix that. Just make it look like the train is the same train, and like that's such a small thing that would just enhance the immersion. It wouldn't change anything. It doesn't change the artistic nature of the game. It's just Now the train is the same train, you know.
I'm going to be
I
that
think stuff
guy
like that could
and
be
just say
nice.
that changing anything about the original will make it worse. I don't care if it's an improvement.
Possibly,
I
'cause
don't
all
care
that
if you
stuff
fix any
does
bugs.
give it character,
I
you know?
love every bug, every glitch, every bit of shitty anti-aliasing, only because it's tied to that experience. So any change will be, I'll be like, it'll feel wrong.
Jesse's
It'll feel
motto:
wrong, so.
you're supposed to love the flaws in someone you love, and
That's right. That's right. I keep referencing in my videos because I love them so much. The real Silent Hill experience guys, Twin Perfect, because in their review of the HD remake, they say it all.
I was
man.
gonna say it's like Silent Hill, like changing
It's
anything,
exactly
even the
like
things,
that.
even changing the things that suck about it.
They make that
worse.
point that like every flaw, every mistake, whatever, is a mistake to you who's redoing it, but it was put there. They made a choice to leave it there, and all that was the context for making the game. And to change it is just disrespectful to the original.
You know a game
situation.
that
Wait, are you talking
here's the
about
thing.
Silent Hill Shattered Memories?
No,
Because
the remake,
I love
the
that game.
HD versions of 2 and 3.
Fuck those.
Yeah, they're garbage.
They're
literal garbage.
I haven't played the original, so Jesse, I know you have. I don't know about the other guys, but I want to know your opinion on Resident Evil 1 versus the GameCube version.
Oh, the GameCube version is the exception that proves the rule because it's
Right.
superior in every way to the PlayStation 1 version.
When I was watching Nate's video, and I was like, on the one hand, I agree conceptually that changing things is a bad idea, but the GameCube version of Resident Evil is a fucking masterpiece.
Yeah, well, okay.
What was the situation for that game being made, though? I'd really like to know, because I don't know.
It's the exact same game, except they made the controls not tank controls, and they made the pre-rendered backgrounds just utterly beautiful.
Well,
And is that the only changes?
They were still tank controls on the GameCube. I think they took that out recently.
In the HD version?
Re-released.
They didn't remove the fantastic cutscenes or anything, did they? The live action stuff.
They made new cutscenes. They put a whole bunch. They put like whole new story stuff in the game. Like Lisa Trevor was all new. She wasn't in the original.
They did change the dialogue to make it less corny as well.
Do you like it better that way? Because a lot of people love the corniness.
Well, I was gonna say there's
I think it's
things about
debatable.
the original still that you can't duplicate. Like the corny dialogue is pretty fucking cool in the original.
Yeah.
He does not say you were almost a Jill sandwich this time.
Yeah.
He says,
Or
like
you, the master of unlocking.
Yeah, he
Take
doesn't
it with
say
you.
that. But like,
I
the
definitely
game-
don't
and-
see the remake as being something that could replace the original. I think
Right.
they're two
Well,
different
that's
experiences.
good.
And
That's
the
what
original is
matters.
Still good.
right. But I think, I think if you, I think if would you say that if someone told you that they've only played the remake of Resident Evil and that they're not interested in playing the first one, do you think you would say you would be like okay with that? Like,
I'd think less of them, but I'd be okay with it, I guess.
And sadly, I think I do want to play that game. I will probably play the remake, but I don't want it to. I would rather have been in a situation where there was only one to play, so that I could get the experience just by playing the game.
because the thing is, Resident Evil on the GameCube is like the most gorgeous fucking game ever. Like, it is the most beautiful game I've ever seen, and I think it does a lot for the game that it looks that way. Where like when you there's parts in that game where you walk into a room and just the level of detail and the way the lighting is fucking terrifying. Like you just the way the room looks. You walk into a room and like you'll be like facing the camera and like your character model looks really realistic and the lighting looks realistic and it just like puts you in this weird frame of mind where you're like, oh god, I'm really here and like things are really killing me, you know, like because it looks so hyper real, and they got away with it because it's all pre-rendered, so they could draw like as much detail into the backgrounds as they wanted. They didn't have to worry about
That's
lighting
the
it from
joy of
different angles and
pre-rendering,
shit.
dude.
Yeah. And
Why
it
doesn't
looks-
anyone do pre-rendering anymore? God, it's a shame.
Yeah, it is a shame. I mean, some people do it, and I think you can. I think that's what's so cool about like.
Nobody big does it.
So what's so cool about like 2D games like Muramasa is that they can do shit like that.
Right,
And have
yeah,
every
totally,
single
totally.
background be like the most opulent thing you've ever seen, you know. But I think it fell out with 3D games because people bitch about the cameras. You know,
Yeah,
people don't
yeah.
want to have the camera constantly changing modes, and like I think it
That's
would
why
be
tank controls are important.
Well, I mean, in the HD version, it doesn't have tank controls, but I never found it confusing. Like I was just,
I guess they
thought
just
it worked
did it
perfectly
right.
fine. You know,
Yeah. Like even in Final Fantasy VII, like it can get confusing sometimes walking between screens. And it doesn't have tank controls. And I remember several times I'll like walk back through a place just because like the camera changes completely.
The
and
worst
go in
in
direction.
Final Fantasy VII is that tunnel in the beginning where
Is that in Junon?
it's really confusing to tell which, like, if you're supposed to go forward or backwards.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. Underground in the
I've actually heard that referred to as the noob tunnel, where people have gotten so lost in that tunnel that they quit playing the game because they couldn't figure out what to do.
Is that
Fucking
the
fags.
long tunnel that just goes really far in both directions?
It's like when you're
Yeah.
raiding to Shinra HQ, I think, and like you're trying to
Yeah,
get there,
yeah.
and you go through all these subway
I mean,
tunnels or something.
I kind of like that, even though it took a long time, because
Yeah, I mean,
if
it's
you
a
go
cool
towards
place,
the camera,
but it is
you
confusing.
Get loads of treasure,
That's true.
but if you
Guys,
just want to
guys,
go ahead...
I'm changing my vote. I'm
can go
sorry.
forward.
Binding of Isaac was wrong. My favorite game of all time is Frog Fractions.
What's I like Number Munch, Math Blaster.
Have you guys have you guys played Frog Fractions?
No, I've never heard of it.
Oh, I have played
Oh.
it on your suggestion, and it was great.
Guy, I must have made you play Frog
You
Fractions.
guys should play Frog Fractions. It's
And
fantastic.
I'm looking-
Is that the frog
okay.
game that goes crazy?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Am I thinking of a...
Yeah, you are.
that you
There's-
go down
there's a
and
dragon.
Then it's like, oh...
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I have played that. Yeah,
Good.
You
I
have?
remember that game where it turns into like a million different games.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So I'm looking at this article, and apparently Frog Fractions 2 is
Oh!
but it's coming out, but it's coming out by way of some like insanely convoluted alternate reality game
Awesome.
that involves like weird real life performance art pieces.
Guys, let's all play
being
Frog
staged
Fractions.
That
by the
sounds
creators.
fucking awesome.
I'm reading about it right now.
man.
Holy shit! I'd forgotten about Frog Fractions, but
You know what?
goddamn.
You're right. I'm changing my vote. Frog Fractions
Yep.
is objectively the best.
We did
game
it, guys.
ever made.
Frog
No,
Fractions.
you know what? Not even that.
I'm so glad we were able to come to a consensus. This is a progressive.
Not even that. This convoluted release method means that Frog Fractions 2 is the best game ever, and it doesn't even
That's
exist.
right. That's right. Certainly the best
No,
franchise.
that is a phenomenal game. Though.
By the way,
that honestly probably would make my list of like top 5 games ever.
my game of the year for 2015 is Dengeki Bunko Fighting Climax. Technically, it came out last year in Japan, but it came out this year in the U.S. and it's possibly my favorite fighting game that's not called Super Smash Brothers. I play as Kosaka Kirino from Ore no Imoto ga konna ni kawaii wake ga nai, or my little sister can't possibly be this cute. And I kick everybody's ass with her, and she has really fun moveset, and she's like the most satisfying character to play in a video game I've ever played.
I'm going to give you guys a spoiler.
I get to
I'm
beat
gonna
up
spoil you
Kirito
guys.
and Shauna.
Here's
It's great.
a spoiler for future Best Guy Ever episode. Kirino is the worst creation in the history of mankind. She is an abomination. She is an utterly reprehensible piece of human garbage. And it is my mission in life to obliterate her memory from the face of the earth. I'm going to fucking recreate Hiroshima if it means one more person will not...
I'm
the
surprised
little
you...
sister,
Kirino.
Yeah, the little sister.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you
okay.
haven't bought Dengeki Bunko Fighting Climax just so you could beat her up.
That's, I'll go pirate it.
You
Because
know,
I
it's
bought it
not,
just so I could beat up
can't give money to
Kirito.
the people who created Kirino, but I will get it.
You're
so I can beat the shit out of her.
misrepresenting the problem, Guy. The problem is not that she's a terrible person. The problem is that
I
the
know,
show
but
is a terrible
here's the
show
thing.
that makes
I-
that wants you to like
That's
her.
true. I don't like really. The biggest problem are the people around Kirino who enable her. But like, if we eliminate her,
And who the show then goes on to
Right.
celebrate as having done the right
that's
thing.
correct. But I feel like if we kill her, that's like at least one scourge of
You gotta play the game, man. You gotta play it against me. I want to.
I'll
want
play
to
you, dude.
fight you with
oh my,
Kirito.
I want
just so
to fight
can-
you. I
just
will
wanna
be
ruin
Kirito.
your life.
I'll be Kirito. You be Kirino. We will have the ultimate fucking battle.
See,
It'll
the
be
problem is that
best.
Kirito sucks, and Kirino is like the god tier
I'll
character.
do whatever it takes. I've got determination, man. Oh, he's bringing it back. Undertale. That's right.
Yes, we did talk
We'll do
about.
that. We'll
well,
do
that's
that.
why I
We're
wanted to
together.
bring up that my favorite game is Dengeki Bunko Fighting Climax because
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not Undertale, even of this year.
Right.
I also liked Axiom Verge more than Undertale. But,
right.
But I don't know. Axiom Verge is a game I Undertale made me think more. Axiom Verge did not make me think a lot, but it did.
Just more fun.
It's a game that I definitely see myself playing again in a year or two. You know, Undertale, I don't think I will ever play again. I find the gameplay to be extremely frustrating, and I hate it.
I'm gonna play Undertale the way I play Final Fantasy VII, I think, which is just every couple of years, just take the journey and just do it.
Well, it's
just
short
to like
as fuck,
re-immerse.
so that won't be hard. But
yeah, I know. Well,
and it's funny.
Great.
I don't really see myself playing it again.
Yeah.
I think I've gotten all there is to get out of the. I don't know. Maybe someday.
I think I'll play it again.
I
I already played it a third time and didn't even intend to. Was that Mage?
I want to say I play Undertale again, but I feel bad.
You don't have to. You don't have to do genocide or anything.
Well, I turned on the game
right, but if you reset, right?
Yeah. Well, I was me and Shade were gonna do a let's play because we were drinking, and he was big into Undertale, so he's like, why don't you just start up another Undertale run? And then I turned on the game, and Flowey showed up and started talking to me and literally asking me not to do it, and I was like, well, if I'm not supposed to do it in the context of the narrative, then I won't do it. And so
that's so great. That's why I love Undertale, man. That's good.
But
That's
you
great.
you all this time have been saying. You guys keep saying, "Oh, you didn't do a genocide run. You weren't curious enough to
you
blah,
have
blah,
been
blah."
heckling me for a week, telling me I have to kill everyone. You piece of shit.
You are definitely a better person if you do not play genocide, but you do not get the game. You just don't. You don't know everything.
Guy,
what the fuck are you talking
that's
about?
Stupid. You're accepting the game's logic uncritically. Playing a genocide run does not make you a worse person, no matter how much the game tries to tell you it does. Oh, you killed all your friends.
Why would you do it?
Whatever.
Even Toby said, "Why would you do a genocide run?" He put it there as something to be
maybe
avoided.
because it's wicked
I don't
fun.
think that it makes
It's
you
a
worse
temptation
person.
you're supposed to resist.
I think
That's the genius of it.
it means the game's putting one over on you, and I refuse to play by its rules. I play by my rules.
Were constructed as temptations that you are supposed to resist. And
you can do
I don't
what you
even
want.
think
If-
it's
if-
tempting. I did not reach
Well,
the end of the
that's
game
why
and
I
go,
played
I
it.
sure want to kill all these guys. That would be interesting.
well,
you
okay,
know?
that's great for you,
It's
but for
not
me
the-
it was, and that's why I did it. I wanted to know.
Right.
It's that there's
You know
additional
what?
content,
I think-
and it's honestly really, really good content.
That's right, and that's why it's such an
It is,
effective
but I
tool.
think that the reason that there's like a divide of people that don't want to do it, don't even think that it's would be a fun time. Not like it would be fun, but like they don't want to do it, not just because it's nasty, but because they just don't care. And I think it's like the game Undertale. If you end up wanting to not do the genocide run, it's like it's affected you in that way. It just speaks more to like the character writing.
kinda
and all
makes
that
it
to
like
make
Yeah,
them
I
feel
think
like
if you
wanna
don't
do
feel
that.
a desire to do the genocide run, I think the game has kind of failed in what it was trying to do. I think it's trying to incentivize
agree.
you to
No.
do it. Good. I'm glad
I
we
think
agree.
no. You know what? I'm gonna
Yeah?
say it like this. I think
Okay.
there are two equally valid endings to Undertale. One where you keep going and you do genocide, and one where you don't. And I think that, like, you could say that the genocide run has a lot of the interesting content in the game.
Yeah.
But I think it's equally interesting to play a game and then for that game to actually convince you don't want to play it.
Dude,
again.
no, I totally agree with you, but I still think
I'm with
that it's,
I'm with you.
yeah.
That is legitimate. And
I think
it's cool.
every single ending is totally fine. But
Well, my whole thing
to-
is
to-
like, I love that the genocide run exists, and I respect what it does as a work of art. I think it's the fact that it gives you that choice and tries to tempt you is like the
Right.
coolest, most unique artistic thing that a game has done
Yes.
in many years.
exactly.
However,
Yeah.
me personally, Toby Fox is not smarter than me. I'm not going to fall for his shit, and
No-
I'm not
nobody's
going,
smarter
I'm not
than you,
going to let
Jesse.
him browbeat me and talk down to me for doing something that he tried to get me to do so he can suck a dick. I'll never play the genocide run. He'll never fucking trick me, and I'll never fall for his meta bullshit because I'm better than him.
Well, see, the problem is you know everything already, so you don't have any desire to play because you already know what's
Well,
going to happen.
But I get where Jesse's
okay,
coming from. That like Toby, like it's weird for the game to look down on you when he programmed this into the game. Like he's the bad
Yeah.
guy. He made the genocide.
He programmed a choice into the game, so of course there had to be a negative choice. It's up to you to do what you want.
Well, okay, let me just explain to me the logic.
He's like God,
that
judging
maybe
me
went
for
into
masturbating when he gave me a dick in the first place.
When
That's
I
right.
played through the game on my first run, even though I was going for pacifist, I ended up killing some people and resetting. You know, I killed Toriel and then I reset to do it again and got the happy ending. I killed Undyne because I couldn't figure out what to do with her, and I saw her fucking death, which was awesome, by the way. If you haven't seen her neutral death, it's fucking heartbreaking.
I'll have to do that.
It's wicked cool.
Yeah, it is definitely the saddest one.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, it's
I
like
would say.
okay, spoilers. You know how in Jesse, don't listen if you don't want
I
to be
don't give a
spoiled.
shit.
You know how in Genocide, when you kill her, she starts melting, but she's like, "No, everyone's counting on me. I've got to
It's the
defeat you."
best
And then
moment
she
in the game.
And then it is the best moment in the game. And then she wills herself back
Yeah.
to life through determination and becomes the ultimate champion. In a neutral run, she tries to do that,
no.
but because you're not the ultimate monster, she can't summon the determination to do it. And just
my
and
God.
just like, "No, I won't die. I can't die. I won't
It's
die."
That's
and then
genius.
and then she dies.
That's brilliant. I love it. It's so good,
She's like,
Toby.
yeah. She's like, "No, I can't," and then
I
she
would
just
I would
melts
suck
away.
that dog's dick any day.
No, it's wicked good. Anyway, yeah, so I saw that and I loved it, and I was like, but I was sad, so I reset and undid it and saved the game, saved her, and then I got to the end and I was like, well, and if Toriel dies, she has a good scene too.
Right.
So I really wanted to see the alternate content. So I was like, of course I'm going to do the genocide because I want to see. I want to see
And
all
that
the
is
shit.
exactly the point. It's exactly the point.
And yeah, that's sort of the point the game's making. The funny thing is, I hate games having multiple paths. I never do multiple paths in a game. Like if it's a game that has 3 endings, I'll take the ending I got. I don't give a fuck. I think there's a lot of people who like they get to the end and they're like, you have to get the true ending, the perfect ending. You have to get the one where you did everything right and you saved everybody.
Yep.
And I'm like, I'm just gonna take whatever ending I get. Like if I played in a way where I fucked up, then this is the ending that my story has.
I'm one of those people who always does whatever it takes to get the true ending on the
Same.
first playthrough. Just because I can't, I don't know if I'm going to be able to put in the time to do it again, and I never risk that. Like I'll get about and have to play through and not.
I
get
feel
it.
like
I have to get it.
the world we live in. You
Yeah.
can't restart anything, right? You go through, and I mean,
No, dude, you're
for some-
totally right.
for
Your
some
way is
people,
better.
I get why, like for video games, it's an escape from the real world. It's a world where you can do everything again. You can make everything perfect and have your Groundhog's Day loop where you saved everybody and the end is great. But like for me, I just kind of like to take what comes and be like, because I mean, mostly out of impatience, I don't want to fucking play through the whole game twice or redo things. I never save scum in any game unless it's fucking Fire Emblem, because I'm not going to let any of my
I also do it out of
characters die.
impatience. Well, I mean, it's exactly the same as Fire Emblem for me. I cannot let any character die in Fire Emblem ever. It is an impossibility for me.
Because to me, that
I will
seems,
never do it, and I cannot.
To me,
do
it seems like if you let a character die, you lost the game. Like
That's right.
'cause-
That's
'cause
exactly
it's-
right.
You could
It's a
win
failure
any
state.
battle if you
I
just
think-
threw enough soldiers at it. I mean, you're going to
Okay,
fuck yourself in the long run.
That's my
I
obsession with
totally,
getting the
I
true
totally
best
understand.
ending. Yeah.
Like, obviously, because in Fire Emblem, all the characters are characters and individuals, you don't want any of them to
Right.
die because it would feel really terrible. And not only that, it also hurts you
And you
strategically.
can
if
save
your-
them. You
if your
can
characters are
always just
dying.
try again. So there's no excuse for
However-
letting them die.
And so I'm totally with you on why you would want to redo it and not let anyone die. However, in games like that, I think it really ups the stakes and makes it a lot more engaging and ultimately fun if you decide ahead of time, I will not reset to save
Right,
anyone.
right.
If I fuck up,
Well, you
they
know,
die, because that
I'm going to
raises
that.
the
I've thought
stakes
about
and it
that,
makes your...
But I suck at Fire Emblem, so like if I tried to play that way, I'm fucked. Like
It would obviously make things a lot harder. It'd be like Nuzlocking. It'd
Yeah.
be like doing a Nuzlocke run of fucking
But even-
Fire Emblem. Which,
even
by
in
the
a
way,
Nuzlocke run-
I love Nuzlocke runs and I love the idea of Nuzlocke runs, but the game is so not balanced for it, and it takes so much grinding that I
'cause
don't think
with
I'll
a
ever do
Nuzlocke
another
run,
one.
You don't have to restart your game when you lose your Pokemon, right? You just pick up a new Pokemon and just play with that one.
You can't restart your game. If your Pokemon dies, you have to pick up one of
right.
your other ones.
And I think that is a lot more convenient than trying to do Fire Emblem without a character, because if you continue...
No, you're a fool. You're a fool. You're a fool. You're a fool because it's the opposite of convenient.
Well,
everything about a Nuzlocke
what I mean
run
is,
will destroy you forever.
If you lose a character in Fire Emblem and you go to the next level and you save your game, then you are fucked forever, because you can never get that character back. And so if you keep losing characters, you're just going to have to restart the whole game. With Nuzlocking, you will have to grind excessively, but you will never have to actually just reset the game, you know.
That's not you
in
can
Fire
lose.
Emblem, they give you, way more characters than you can ever use in one match, so
I've never
it's not
quite
like
gotten far
just
enough
run
in
out of
Fire Emblem
characters.
that I had like the huge stock of characters.
You can lose Pokemon. You can lose enough Pokemon. You can easily lose enough Pokemon in a Nuzlocke run that you're completely fucked. You can also lose Pokemon or just not gain Pokemon in the first place through bad luck, so as to like not have Pokemon on your team.
So is the rule that you can only use
good.
each type of Pokemon once?
Oh, you're talking about Nuzlocke now, huh?
No, you can You just catch the first... Every area you come to, you catch the first one you find.
I see.
So if you end up with...
And if you fail to catch it, then you just don't have one.
Yeah.
Like when I was playing Heart Gold in Nuzlocke, I got to the Dragon Trainer, and I had... Well, I mean, there's a whole terrible story with that.
Brunswick,
I had an ice
Tale of Brunswick.
I had an ice Pokemon, Brunswick the Mammoth Swine. He died tragically in a horrible
disgusting
Wobbuffet
piece
accident.
of shit Wobbuffet. Worst Pokemon ever.
But then because I went because of that, I was completely fucked against Claire the Dragon Trainer. Got my shit wrecked. Didn't actually game over. I managed to beat her, but I was so crippled by it that I ended up losing on like pretty much the next climactic encounter. Where was I going?
We are way off the topic of what the best game ever is.
Well, what's your point? Are you making a point with that?
Well, no, but I will
Okay.
now, and I'll say that I think that it highly recommends Pokemon as a game for best game ever or some title like it. The way that its systems are broad enough that you can play it in multiple different
that
ways.
brings me back
Interesting
again
though.
to
the
Dark Souls.
How much of this, like, what do they call it, like expanded gameplay or
emergent gameplay?
Emergent gameplay. How much of that can be factored into
All of it.
how good
all
a game
of it should
is?
be.
You think?
Because
okay.
Absolutely
it's
all
a
of it.
factor
Absolutely
of the
all of
like.
it.
There are games. Like if you played God of War, you cannot do
Yeah.
anything differently from what the game is. You know,
Right,
you can.
right.
There's nowhere to go. There's no other abilities you have. You just play through. And I mean, I'm not criticizing God of War. I think it's a fine game. But like if you play Dark Souls, you can play it in so many hundreds of different ways that completely change it. Where you can play a run where you only use the whip and you're Simon Belmont and it's Castlevania, and you know I've watched people beat the game like that. I've watched a guy beat the game with a Guitar Hero controller. I've watched a guy beat Dark Souls with voice commands. He was saying like left, right, jump, dodge, left,
Awesome.
like that. Like I watched him beat Ornstein
man.
and Smo with fucking voice commands. I've watched a guy. One of my friends beat the game at level 1. He beat the game using only shields, only 2 shields, for weapons. I've watched him.
Oh yeah.
Like there's just so many ways that you can beat the game. There's different ways that you can speed run it, where you could do a natural speed run where you go all the way through, or do a glitched speed run where you skip half the bosses by jumping through the first flame or whatever, or not the first flame, the what's the big one called? The giant bonfire, whatever. You know what I'm talking about.
The kiln of the first flame.
The Lord Vessel?
Oh, the Lord Vessel.
The Lord Vessel, yeah. There's like a glitch you can do where you just go through that door and like completely bypass the whole second half of the game.
Yeah.
Which is how the early speedruns were done. There's a million ways to play Dark Souls, and it makes it endlessly replayable and super awesome. And you're never done with the game until you decide you're done with the game. You know, and even the nature of the story supports that. Until you go hollow, the game is still going. You know, and the cyclical nature of it, especially. I mean, I'd say that if there's one flaw with Dark Souls that's not like a technical flaw, it's that the dark ending doesn't seg you well into New Game Plus. Because
Did you just say Segu?
I like saying Segu, okay?
Oh my
Segway,
God.
God
I
damn
know.
it.
This podcast
This podcast
is
is
over.
ruined.
I like saying Segu. Anyway,
But that's not the
I
word.
just like saying it. It's my version of the word.
All right, let's seg you into a new
People give me
topic
shit
now.
about this all the time, but I
Well,
like the
they
word.
should, because
it's not a
word.
The dark ending
Guys,
does
I
not
jack off
segue.
in public all the time, and people won't stop giving me shit about it. What's going on? What's wrong with the world?
The dark ending does not segue well into New Game Plus, whereas the light ending makes sense as like the cycle continues and you are the new like guy or whatever. I guess it doesn't make perfect sense because it's still Gwyn at the end and it's not like your player character or whatever, but like you know, it makes more sense. It feels more.
I'm not sure the
natural.
light ending particularly segues very well into it. Are you just saying that it would be like a cycle much later?
Wait,
like they're doing it again?
Segues well into what?
Into New Game Plus.
Because like Gwyn is back, and he shouldn't be back.
I don't think that the New Game Plus is really a part of the story.
Well, people
I don't think it's meant to
have
be.
argued this over whether which ending is better for segueing into New Play Plus.
I think the dark
Segue.
ending. Well, I mean, in both of them, all the bosses come back, and it doesn't make any sense.
I don't think.
The fact that
It's
the bosses
as
come
much
back
of a different
does
world
not make
as
any
like
sense.
it's as much of a different world as someone else who you summon. They come
But,
from
like,
their version of Lord.
But
Dance.
if
It's
it
like the same thing.
wasn't.
It's,
if it wasn't for that,
isn't
you
it
could.
supposed to be like an alternate dimension? or
That's
something?
what I'm.
Yeah.
I think so.
That's right, because time is convoluted.
You're a different guy who is on the same quest.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
So
could be
I
that.
think it's fine.
Whatever. Anyways, I'd say that like but the game is pretty much only over when you say it's over, and
Sure.
and you can keep doing so many new things with it, and I feel like, and I've watched my friends do like upwards of 40 runs of Dark Souls, and like you know, and doing it so many different ways. There's a lot of ways to chug through the early part first. There's a cool video that I saw early into, like when I was learning about all the different ways to play Dark Souls, that was everything you can do before the gargoyles.
Yeah,
and this dude just like plows.
It's like so much.
Yeah, he does like pretty much everything aside from Sen's Fortress and Anor Londo can be done before, like, or you know, and everything that comes after those can be done before the gargoyles. And it's just like mesmerizing to watch people do shit like that and toy
That's
around
really
with it.
cool. But to bring it back to the topic at hand, all that stuff is like you really enjoy how the game is open to doing whatever you want, all these ways you can explore it, whereas in my opinion I sort of am more focused on the story and the like sort of the point of the game, like the specific story and like the things that you learn from it that don't necessarily lend themselves to multiple playthroughs. It's just different ways of looking at it, and that's kind of the consensus here. Everyone's got their own way of looking at shit.
You want to know where best
You know?
game ever debate becomes really, really interesting is when
Where?
you involve mods. And you have to argue for whether or not you think that a game is qualified to be compared or to be like, you know, celebrated when it has mods. And
on that basis, like Skyrim would probably be a lot of people's best game ever.
Yeah.
Just because it's got so much shit.
I think that it is totally fair.
I do too.
To include,
Right, you
to
just
include
have
mods.
to specify like what you're talking about.
Because, like,
when
for
you're,
instance,
you know.
Super Bunny Hop, when he made his video on Fallout 4, he was saying on Twitter, like, you know, and in the video, he kept saying, like, it's advisable to play this game 6 months from now when it's been modded to the point that it's like that it fixes all the issues. And I was like, what I want you to do, Super Bunny Hop, and I said this on Twitter, I was like, make a video 6 months from now about the new game. Because it is a new game at that point.
That's a great
like,
idea.
It's a totally different game now that it's like that's got all these mods. And I think it's worth celebrating. Like if you can mod a game and make it the best game ever, then like that's worth celebrating. And like with Dark Souls, like the PC version was definitely better than the PS3 because they made it so you could play it in 1080p, you could play it. But when it came
Except
out,
it had to be fixed because it was totally like crippled.
When it came out, they had it locked at 30 frames per second. They had it locked at I don't think it was locked at 720, but like
something like
that.
The
thing is, there was a fix for it the day the game launched, and Steam put a link to that patch on the front page of Steam. Like it was if you bought the game, it literally told you like the patch is right here to fix it. And so from day one, Dark Souls PC, even though like if you were writing a consumer review of it, people would be like, oh well, the game has these locked frame rate issues and it's a big problem, and like people want to punish the company for not, you know, releasing it right. But from the very beginning, you could mod it in 5 seconds and have it look beautiful.
Now, see, I have no problem with including that as like a general review of the game. The only thing, and this is an aside, is I don't want the company to get that credit. It doesn't deserve the credit for the
but
community
I think games should transcend who created them.
Ultimately, yes, but just as a matter of like economics, it's
saying that mods don't count into terms of determining like how good a game is or whether it's the best game ever or whatever really smacks of like.
I'm not saying that, by the way. I'm not saying that.
Really, I know you're not, but someone that did it really smacks of like objective, like best versus
I'm going to make
favorite
my objective
bullshit.
review of the best game.
Well, I think the problem with it is that it turns calling a game great into just like an award for the people who made it, as opposed to an award for the game. Like, we're trying to figure out what is the best game for us. We're not doing like, we're not trying to find the best game ever so that we can give a fucking trophy to the people who made it. We're doing it to say like, what according to us is the most fun game to play. And I think if mods make a game the best game ever, then it's the best game ever, regardless of just credit the guy who made the fucking mod in your like, if you're giving the trophy to everybody, just give it to the mod guy too. It's the best game ever. Congratulations.
Can you imagine like them ever share, like the Skyrim devs ever like sharing credit with like the modding community?
Did you not hear about like this huge controversial thing that happened where they tried to make a like they tried to monetize mods?
Oh, of course I heard about that.
Yeah, build a community of we're going to support the mods and people have to pay for them, and it completely bombed and fell apart.
That was just another way to
days.
like capitalize on other people's work by the company. So fuck them.
It didn't work out well. It was not a good idea.
It'll be back though. It'll be back.
Yeah,
give it a couple years.
In some form, it might return.
Yeah. Well, we've been going for 2 hours now. Yeah. I feel like we've covered a pretty good breadth of shit. How do you guys feel? Anybody got anything else to say?
I can't believe I'm awake.
I want to go back and retroactively change what I said about Crazy Taxi. It is objectively the best game ever made. Not just my favorite. I'm on Ben's side now. It's both the same.
Good. All right. Gib, Hippo Man, what do you got to say?
Undyne is the best girl, and I want to kiss her fishy
vagina
face.
Oh boy.
Hippo, why does Undyne have more hair when she's on the date?
Because she's more attractive that way. She is to me.
She was wearing it in a ponytail.
But it's true. But if you look at her head, even from the back, the top of her head is blue. So it's
she is obviously more attractive that way. But I'm saying why? In universe, what is the explanation for the fact that she has more
literally
hair?
wearing a wig?
The hair from the back to the front.
That is possible. It could just be resting, not growing.
Yeah,
she's got the Prince Zuko top knot thing going on.
She wears a wig.
And Zuko looked like he had long hair when it was down, right?
I don't know.
He did.
No.
Zuko looked like he was like bald everywhere, but then when it was down, he looked like
her sprite, her little out of battle sprite looks like
hair off, and then his hair grew normally.
He had shaved it.
Undyne's out of battle sprite looks almost completely bald.
That's true. It's just got the little tuft. But you know what? The fan art looks a million billion times better with just like a really tight ponytail. So
and if there's one thing, if one thing's canon, it's fan art.
That's true. Well, there's also the scene later where she pulls her hair forward. But for whatever. Okay, that's it. All right, everyone, thanks for joining. This was the first, possibly not even going up version of the Pro Crastinators.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot you were here. Mage, what do you got to say, Mage? Go on. Let's hear it.
Nothing important, just Undertale is best game, and if you don't agree, you get dunked on.
Well memed, my friend. Okay, thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be leave your feedback if you like this. Just tell us, and we'll maybe do another one of these sometime soon. All right, thanks for watching, guys. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.